have to in my
Wait, we have one and we want this, we got.
We did. It's making faster if I just get you my.
Yeah. Where did the building?
It's now, it's not like at the end of
The last couple of years.
Buffer strip or?
Especially there.
There's one like, you know. Yeah. It's trying to exact my industry.
I'll let you.
Yeah, it's well, it's pretty much right at the end.
Don't live there in the old foundation.
So you sound good, maybe more fresh up, it's too good. That's true. Yes.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ellen Tolcott, the mayor of Cooperstown, and we have convened this information meeting to update people on the plans for a proposed lakefront park platform that's ADA compliant, et cetera. And I did want to sort of begin because a lot of people don't know the history of our lakefront park. We're very fortunate in the village of Cooperstown that area that in Cooperstown has been parkland for well over a century. There are more seats here and back there. In the late 1800s, Alfred Corning Clark owned the property. There's plenty of seats, Julia. I'm not going to be long-winded, but you don't want to stand. So in the late 1800s, Alfred Corning Clark owned the property. At his death, it passed to his wife, Elizabeth Scriven Clark, who in 1902 created Otsego Lake Park along the waterfront and built the pavilion, which was used for dancing and community events. And it was totally for the benefit of the public. This one. On the western edge of the park was what is now on Pioneer Street. This is a picture of a 1915 Sanborn map. There was a pier that was owned by the Otsego Lake Transit Company, which operated steamers on the lake. Their real dock was what is on what is now Fair Street. But at this time, they bought that property. And remember, the Pioneer Street did not go to the lake at that time. You'd really be running in to this pier and the park. And because it was all privately owned. And the transit company had a long wharf there, as you can see, where they had their boat livery service. Their steamers, et cetera, were at the foot of Fair Street. But they did operate this. And it was well used by the public. I guess I jumped right into that. I should say that the Otsego Lake property, after Elizabeth's passing, went to Robert Sterling Clark, also known as Robin, who in July 1936 donated the lakefront property. And it was kind of an interesting mechanism. It didn't go right to the village, but that's where he wanted it to go. He donated all his property to Otsego County. And then he gave money to the village of Cooperstown trustees in 1936, October 1936. We received $25,000 from him. And it was to purchase from Otsego County. This was the whole concept, I guess. Ferry Springs, and that's when the village got the Ferry Spring lot. It was also what they called the Bowers lot, which was additional property adjacent to Ferry Spring that is now all Ferry Spring. And Lakefront Park. It wasn't called that per se, but they were suggesting it because it was then covering from Lake Street to Otsego Lake. And on November 9th, 1936, the County Board of Supervisors sold the properties to the village for $15,000. And we officially took possession on December 1st, 1936. And then one more thing, in May 1937, the village trustees voted to accept the offer of the Leatherstocking Corporation to sell the property at the foot of Pioneer, which is this, which had formerly been owned by the Otsego Lake Transit Company. And we purchased that property for $7,018. With all those parcels in hand, the parkland was redesigned and redeveloped and renamed into Lakefront Park. And it opened up that whole vista at the core of the village. And you can see Pioneer Street now goes right to the lake, and it was a popular viewing spot for vehicles. We'd drive up to the edge and watch the lake from there. I should point out that there are two New York State grants associated with the park around 1989. There was a grant and it covered the rebuilding of the bandstand as well as the construction of new bathrooms. Previously, the bathrooms were on the western edge of the park and were pretty rudimentary. So they were rebuilt on Fish Road. Fish Road, that property was paid for by public referendum to be added to the Lakefront Park property in 1961. So that makes our total 3.2 acre park. There was a later grant in 1998 that totally rebuilt these seawall that's in the lake. And this, you can see, it also reconstructed our old wooden docks, which have of course been replaced by our more modern floating docks. But those two, you can sort of see, you're going from Fish Road, that seawall extends all the way along to the western boundary of Pioneer Street. And whenever New York State gives you money, they require something, and it's called a deed covenant. So there are covenants on the deeds to the entirety of Lakefront Park property, so that it will forever remain in public use and domain. So there's been some discussion about where did this idea come from, and I actually had to dredge up a little of this because I'd forgotten some of it. But in August 2014, the county IDA announced funding support for the village for the development of a comprehensive plan. There were numerous community meetings and charrettes were held from 2015 to 16 for the development of that plan, which was approved and adopted by the village board at our October 2016 meeting. It was finalized at the end of September and approved then. In developing that plan, village residents placed a great deal of priority on recreation and voted an entire section of our comp plan to Lakefront Park. And goals and action items included promoting lake access to visitors, enhancing visual and public access to water, improving accessibility, ADA compliant access, and constructing, you'll note it says here, there was a lot of support for a long pier going out so that you could go out in the lake, see it, fish off it, etc. We later did a 2018 park survey that was sent out with our village newsletter, the Village Voices. And it supported most of these recommendations as well. So the Board of Trustees in 2018 approved a grant to New York State and its Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Office for a planning grant to look at what might be possible. Our application was successful and we received an award contract about a year later. It always takes about a year to get any of the contracts in place. And from that, we selected Michael Haas to do our is more information on that plan, which is available online on the village website. So when we were awarded that, it was essentially paid for a consultant, a landscape architect and architect to design what would be proposed. And we opted to go with Michael Haas, who I'll introduce in a minute, who had previously done the Lucy B. Hamilton Amphitheater at the Fenimore on the shores of Otsego Lake. So we felt comfortable with his ability to work around the lake and to build this appropriately. In the meantime, while it took a while to get our contract to move forward with any plans for the platform, we opted to do a totally village-funded redesign of Pioneer Park to make that ADA compliant, because it truly wasn't. There were actually at one point two sets of stairs on the Pioneer Street side. It was kind of a gravel surface. You could come in on a wheelchair, but it was dirt gravel. It was not totally compliant. And so working with the chamber, which really wanted to relocate its kiosk, that was a total redesign funded by the village and designed by Mr. Haas. So we felt that he had a good aesthetic eye. So in 2019, we were ready to move forward with a lot of our potential plans for a platform. And trust me, there were a ton of ideas. And as I say, right from the start, we decided the pier is not something we want there. We felt it was too much for that part. You know, we already had boat docks there. So let's just do something that's ADA compliant and will provide anyone in a wheelchair the ability to sort of get out towards the lake and view, as well as having interpretive signage. And it is also designed, we wanted something that would complement the buffer strip that was award-winning buffer strip that's adjacent to it in the park that works to have filtration. So we asked for kind of all those components. And over the course of several meetings with the Parks Board, you know, the review of plans, plenty of feedback. There was a ton of feedback on fencing, trust me, and the rail around it. This was one of the earlier permutations. There were a lot of fencing designs on it, and what they should look like. And ultimately, it must have been about 2000. Yep, it was, the planning grant was closed in early 2023. So we had worked on it for a while. We then applied for a construction grant and submitted a consolidated funding application in July 2023. And these all have, you know, public hearings, should we go for this? And that public hearing was held. And in December 2023, not quite a year ago, we were notified we had been approved. And once again, we don't have a contract yet. We're just trying to get pieces in place. So when we do guide a contract, we're not just sitting there saying, well, I guess we should have. So with that in mind, at this point, I would like to introduce Michael Haas of Delta Engineering, who, as I said, was the designer on several facilities here in the village and has provided a lot of design work for us. So, thank you, Mike.
You appreciate it. You may want to put it in the full house tonight. Just before Thanksgiving. As you mentioned, I'm a landscape architect. Worked numerous projects in the area. Number of other projects for the Farmers Museum and the Fenimore Museum. Including the panels that were out there this past summer. We actually, excuse me, I can't hear you. We actually designed the panels at the Fenimore Museum that were the photographs. They were 8 foot by 10 foot photographic panels. I'll just try to project and maybe I can back off a little bit. I got some boards. I want to show you. Ellen had shown you a couple of the earlier iterations, if you will, of the park back in 2020, I think we were starting to work on some of the design concepts, including what's the size of the overlook, what's what are the materials we're gonna use. Want to try to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the context of the site, the lakefront park and its history. And certainly that the New York State Parks, Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation is providing funding for this. And they're going to be very particular about those kinds of details. So I just want to show you a couple pictures of what the site looks like currently. And it's beautiful. That view at the terminus of Pioneer Street is a gem. We want to maintain that view to the best of our ability. So a lot of our design concepts kept that in mind. Everything from anything vertical that's going to be above your eyesight standpoint. Kept everything low and more prostrate towards the ground so that we would not interrupt the view as approaching it. Okay, a lot of people do come down there, and Village has done improvements over the years to Pioneer Street to accommodate for parking. It had some handicap parking at the end of the street. I don't know if Mitch maybe widened it a little bit because it's a maneuver to turn around. Smaller cars can do a U-turn, but larger vehicles, pickup trucks and stuff have to do a little K-turn. And we're cognizant of that. So the design that was accepted was primarily a large platform that cantilevers out over the lake with a low seat wall, walls high as the seat you're sitting on, about 18 inches. They'll have some illumination under the lip of the wall. So again, lighting becomes, you have lights that were eye level or above, they begin to affect the retina of your eye in terms of appreciating the view at dusk, for example. So you have all the illumination at low levels to illuminate primarily the decking and the pavement. And you can see, there's a nice landscape scheme of low growing flowering perennials. A lot of big bushes and trees, in this case, because again, we want to maintain that view. So these are some of the additional renderings that we did as the concept was refined. So the decking itself is going to be wood. It's a natural material. It's very sustainable. Some examples of this product. This is called thermary. Yep. You know how the ash trees have been dying over the last 10, 15 years? This is ash, which is a native product, native tree. And they basically bake it at a high temperature in films, and it collapses the cell structure to the point where wood will not expand more than or absorb more than 7% moisture content, which is important when you're building a deck because you don't want to see a lot of expansion and contraction. You also want a product that's going to stay neat and clean, not have a lot of checks and splinters like you get with pressure treated wood. You're not going to get the mold growth on this as a natural product that you do get with some of the synthetic plastic woods. So again, we're sticking with very sustainable and native materials. The wall itself, seat wall, will have a stone veneer on the face of it. Here's an example here. Have a large blue stone cap and a stone veneer, which is indicative of a lot of the homes, buildings around town. And the railing itself, we saw some earlier iterations that had a lot of pickets. We start putting balustrades and pickets in your railing, again, you obscure the view. So we ended up putting in the picket portions of the railing on the returns, these sections that are perpendicular to the lake on both ends. And then the arc itself will have clear lensand tempered glass panel. It's very typical of decks today. There's an example here. So it's very transparent, of course, glass would be. And very durable. What we specified was the heaviest stage of that product for this rail. So that if somebody tries to throw a rock against it or whatever, has less of a chance of breaking. And it's tempered for this. Again, you've been to other places in your travels. Sure, there's some locally here, even on the lake itself. Just enhances the view when you're sitting at a high level to the railing. Couple other things, there's other amenities, the benches, the trash bins, all again are indicative of what you see around Cooperstown. Same model, same make, same type of product. Amenities, including some of the bollards. We had to engineer the deck so that it had to be suspended and supported in the lake with 2 piers. Okay, these are concrete piers that are getting set in the bottom of the lake, somewhere like 8 feet maybe off of that seawall. It's not very far out. And we were particular to keep again the profile very low. This is the seawall. We're spanning over the seawall. The seawall will not support the deck. The deck is supported again at the pier in the lake. You can see the deck itself cantilevers a few feet beyond the pier, so you won't ever see it. And then the seawall that's back in on the back side of the decking has beam pockets, and the beams itself will sit in the pockets of that seawall. Again, below the deck, so you won't see the structure. But we kept everything very low. These are I-beams, and the web of the beam, all the joists that support the deck will be sistered into the web of the beam, as opposed to setting the deck on top of the beam, which is going to base the whole deck. So, hence, we're good. Our intention was good. We designed it appropriately, keep the profile of the whole thing very low. So as you approach it, you'll have a good buffer of landscaping between Pioneer Street. You see the landscape bed sizable, so that, and it's going to be raised somewhat with the seawall in front of it. So really, you won't see the deck until you're approaching it very close to it, okay? Because it's not elevated, it's low to the ground. The apron to this whole thing, this red area that's shown on the drawing here, will be a brick paver. Okay, and we'll be getting samples of that just from the contractors.
Direct that to the camera for the people who are at home to see this, so.
Well, this is the layout of the overlook platform. The decking, which will be the thermary wood product, the seawall, 3 benches in front of the seawall, very simple, sizable plant bed, and then the brick paving that's again flush with the asphalt, but it becomes almost like a rumble strip, if you will. Somebody's approaching it, they're turning around, they'll feel that texture under the wheels of their vehicle and realize that they're getting a little too close. Okay. So we're here to basically answer questions, talk a little bit about our process. Currently at a stage where we've bid the project, and we've received a couple quotes. Okay, low bidder is right on budget. Depends on whether we had some alternates built into the bid. So it depends on how many of the alternates are accepted. At this point, his bid with the alternates is still within the budget. So that's a good thing. We're working a little bit against the weather. We know that the lake has been very low this year compared to previous years. There's a think on one of the boards, there's a picture of it here. This was taken just a couple of weeks ago, and you can see in front of the seawall that a lot of the floor of the lake is exposed. Probably about 12 or 15 feet out. Again, our piers are gonna be about 7 or 8 feet from the seawall. So we were hopeful if we could get a contractor on board, the weather held up, it's possible we could get those piers in now, as opposed to trying to do it early in the spring. Like, most likely is gonna rise from storm outs. It's a challenge, because we're so late in the season, but the funny thing is, that this winter is like last winter, it's very possible to get these things done. We've worked with, closely with the Department of Environmental Conservation, and the Army Corps of Engineers has chimed in, and, they requested that we construct the piers as precast. That means they're cast off-site, up to the site already made. So it's easier to put them in the ground as opposed to casting them in place, which is require a little more framing and a lot more earthwork. Again, if we could do it now when the lake level is low, it's less intrusive, obviously, to the lake and any noise levels, that kind of equipment. The windows are shut this time of year, focus on the lake. Disrupting, construction. So it's possible, if we can progress, if we get our approvals from the state, we can wait on those, for weeks now. But it could be in based on feedback that we receive. We don't get the approvals or the weather turns on us, and contractor says it's a no-go, that's okay. Everything will be pre-constructed, whatever they can do ahead of time, especially the precast piers, and we'll have, early spring to be able to get those in the lake. We don't have any issues with the fishery or fish spawning along the shore of the lake. That would be hindrance, if you will, to our schedule in the spring. Whole intent is to get it all buttoned up by the end of May, Memorial Day, the first week of June, and when the tourists start to return. That way it'll be there for people to enjoy. So take advantage of the winter months, get the railing constructed. There's a lot of things that can be done off-site in the shops prior to the actual fabrication over the platform. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, great presentation, it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm the team from the Watershed Supervisory Committee. Our job is to sort of understand anything that affects the lake. And Dr. Rada's here from SUNY, there's been a lot of work done by Lake Smart groups on planting, on wood, and how it affects the lake and the impact to lakes around New York, certainly, but around the United States. Would you be open to working with those folks who are knowledgeable about that to make sure that that's a part of the consideration as we get closer?
In terms of the plant material,
Well, the impact of any of it on the water itself.
on the water itself, yeah, I mean, we're suspended over the water, so there shouldn't be any impact
Yeah.
to the water resource at all.
So I'm thinking construction, lake plants.
During the construction process, there'll be some, and we built in mitigation with Vindicated, and methods of holding lake back. If, water level doesn't talk to it, will be, so that they basically can get in and get out to do their, to set those piers. But again, the contractor will have an excavator with a auger bit, the arm of it. So they won't even be in the water. They'll be able to reach it from Pioneer Street, basically drill that hole, and then take the precast pier, carry it, tip it, drop it in the hole, essentially. A couple guys there, the rest of it, their shovels. It sounds simple, it really will be that simple. There's only two of them. So it's the kind of work that could occur probably in the course of a day. That's about as minimal.
Would you be open to talking to us about the plantings and that sort of
Oh,
stuff?
for sure, yeah. In fact, one of the plantings is one of the alternates, and it might be one of the items that we you either back out at this stage, you could always add it back in. But it depends on who's gonna install it. Yes, right now the contractor would be set to do the installation. We've made a recommendation as to what the plans would be. You're welcome to take a look at that and give us additional feedback. I
Thank
know
you.
You reached out to, I know the Arts Board, was interested in the plant material. Can't remember if the garden club had weighed in on it or not.
I don't
Here.
think so that was that part of the plan design, which did not in the bid documents.
He should have been,
Yeah, the plant.
Yeah.
So anybody who would like to see any of those plan, materials would contact the village and we would supply what was in the plan.
Yeah, if there's significant changes, we'd have to review that with the contractor, but my guess is we could trade off one species for another.
Thank you.
As the landscape architect, we're pretty tuned into the plans. We try to stick with some native species, knowing that, that we're along the shoreline, so it is a buffer strip. But we also wanted to be taken into consideration of maintenance. Yes, Jeff, okay.
Yeah, just to, which I'm also on the Otsego watershed. This is a little off of, I think, most of what people are interested in, but I just recently attended a webinar from people in Michigan who are very concerned about how water approaches the shore and feel that almost all seawalls will fail because as the wave action hits the seawall, the force is actually driven down rather than splashed up. And so they try and create a gradual loss of the energy of the waves as they come in. That's as much as I know about seawalls, but I don't know whether that's a concern for you or whether how deep that seawall goes down to hold that part of the structure in there for you. But I'd be curious to know what you think about it.
Well, the seawall was engineered. We had a geotech study that was done years ago prior to that. So they're down pretty deep with the steel into the ground, basically into the bedrock. The cap has moved a little bit. Just a few of the caps, we alerted the contractor in our drawings that they're to reset those prior to building out the deck. The caps are precast. They're basically set. There's nothing to anchor them other than weight of them, the gravity, and they're set on the sheet piling themselves. So it's lasted at least 20 years or so. It should last, I don't know what the lifespan of it is, but there is no effect that we saw on the wall in our investigation, and our structural engineers were here to review it. They reviewed the entire study that was done, a technical study, so that we can determine what's the best approach. And their approach was not to put our structure on top of that wall, again, to span it by a few inches so that we're not adding additional weight, if you will, to the structure.
So wouldn't it be wise to know the lifespan of the seawall before building?
There probably is a lifespan that was
And if
provided.
it's 5 years, does that make sense to go forward?
Yeah, I don't think it would be. We could certainly review the report and see what the lifespan is of that, the sheet piling. It's a good question, sir. I can't answer it. I'm not a structural engineer.
I have a couple of questions. How far out from the seawall does that go on?
The deck itself,
Yeah, from the seawall.
I think it's 12 feet in total at the low, at the farthest point. Okay, so that would be approximately from me to those doors. Okay.
The whole thing, man, on the ground. Yeah. Is how far? you know, chart out,
What are you asking, the,
from the brick pavers
To
to
the,
the seawall.
to the seawall or to the glass panels?
Either one.
well, the seawall is roughly about here. So the
Yeah.
seawall, the scale of this drawing is probably about 6 feet from the seat wall, okay? And that planter is probably gonna be maybe 15 feet deep. The brick pavers are probably 7 or 8 feet deep.
Because being down there, there's enough room for it, when you start to turn around.
Oh, yeah.
Losing spaces.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we're not, because we're out over the lake, if we slid this whole thing back, then we'd be impeding more Pioneer
Well, my
Street.
next question is, if, has anybody thought of putting this in front of the park?
Or focus students.
The buffer strip.
Just put them in front of them. Well, there are rocks there.
Yeah, you got the marinas right there.
Well, that's not that one, I mean, where than that.
Go this way.
And they're saying to the right of where it's gonna be.
Yeah,
So right, like over here,
yeah,
I mean, there are boats in that photograph that are fairly close to.
I know, it's the marina's not there.
It's not boat owners or
That's part of the marina.
That's part of the development. Yeah.
Right, live on Pioneer, In summertime, it's nice. Oh, yeah, yeah, and that, we can't fix that. We're not building a roundabout or parking garage. People will, and the village has made improvements to the sidewalks to get people there on foot, so that they don't have to drive down. And I don't think they're encouraged you to drive down. But they do, and it gets a little busy at certain times in the summer. That's part of being in a community like this, where you have a large tourist draw. It's yes.
So I'm speaking on both Elsie 2000 behalf and myself as a property owner. I was honestly very surprised to see after how poorly this performed in the New York Forward community feedback, that it was still proceeding in this design because people didn't want it. People in the comp plan, it says need access to the lake for non-boat owners, non-boaters, non-boat owners. Lake access for swimming. Upgrade village docks, more public lake access docks, boat rentals, non-motor boats. Public dock, public access to swimming in village. Public pier with benches, rental canoes and paddle boats. So at no point do people say they want a viewing platform. They want to be able to actually access the lake for those who don't own boats or aren't fortunate enough to own a motorboat. It's very hard if you don't have the good fortune to be able to afford a powerboat to be able to access the lake from the village. As kayakers have to grab our kayaks 30 yards, and then back uphill after we kayaked, which is tougher. And a little boat cart doesn't. For people who wanted to fish, a fishing platform was something that was recommended. That's been taken out of this option. You can't fish over these glass panels. How does a child fish over a glass panel?
You have it's a railing and it's just.
With the glass panels in between,
Right, but the railing is only,
but there aren't safety channels on the boat docks, and people fish over those.
and that's a good.
So my
Yes.
concern is, in the process, I mean, I went to spend the weekend going over all of the board minutes and Parks Board minutes that I could find. Parks Board on the website only goes back to 2023. So if they were consulted, it wasn't after 2023, because I couldn't find
It wasn't after.
2023 or beyond, because I found one oblique mention. Same in the board meeting minutes. I had to scroll past all the financial disbursements to get to where the public hearing is scheduled. So who decided that a fishing, that a pier was not going to be attractive? I mean, who was on that committee who made these decisions, because it wasn't ever publicized? In the papers, on Facebook, on the village website, even this public hearing wasn't on the village website, in the public information section. So what was this process? Because I feel like it doesn't respond to the comp plan at all, that was asked for. It is a viewing platform that is geared primarily with the etched logos in there for tourists. We already have lots of tourists, and our infrastructure is a hard time supporting them. It was clear in the comp plan that people wanted things for the residents. They wanted infrastructure for the residents. And so this is my concern, is that we are so far along in this process, and the residents don't show up in this project at all. And it's maybe too late, but I have serious concerns about how this process was done. I mean, I'm a planning board member. I actually read the public notices in the paper. I am notice that does that. And I didn't find much mention in any of the board, certainly no plans or drawings or anything like that. And that's a problem, I think, because I was part of charrettes. I went to the New York board meetings. And so I have some serious concerns about this, and I don't think that this aesthetically works with the boardwalk. I mean, it's fine, but it seems a little too polished for an informal boardwalk that is much more naturalized. And this seems to me like something like Alexandria, and we're not. So that's part of my concern. The other is that this is a riparian zone. And would another property owner be allowed to build something like this on their property, or would that be forbidden by the because it says no structures within 75 feet of the shore? So that is a big concern I have, and why wasn't that?
I will say that, and I tried to show that there were lots of comments, but the three recommendations were further ensure that the view of the lake is not hampered by vegetation, provide pedestrian access to existing sidewalks, and explore the development of a waterfront walking paths and a pedestrian fishing pier. And the sense when the grant was received in 2018 and when work began in 2019, it would have been at the end of the year, that there was the feeling that we didn't want a long pier coming out of there.
But who was we?
I'm sorry.
Who is we?
That we did a 2018 park survey,
Right.
that was went around, and we asked these questions.
Right.
I think you would be seeing a lot more dislike from the public had we put out a long pier there. They could totally look at adjacent properties, but
What's that?
it did appear that that was the sense of the boards. They did go to, I'll just a second. They did go to the Parks Board, and that's in the minutes in early 2020, before the pandemic shut everything down. Then they also went in 2021. A lot of the communications were via email, so they weren't necessarily there, but they were sent plans. Yes, I agree. Could there have been more public involvement? Yes, probably.
There were also comments that had to be provided in the grant applications. I remember seeing the public comments and letters of support.
Right, we weren't, well, I wasn't asked for one. It's probably about the reason, I don't know. But,
And as per,
but I don't recall any information about the grants being soliciting those letters of support. I don't recall any of that information being publicized. And that's my concern, is that there would have been feedback, I think, and maybe I'm just speaking out of time, but I think, I'm just concerned with the lack of attention to what was really explored in this threats.
Absolutely. I would point out that we did apply for a construction grant in 2021. And whenever we do this, we do have a public hearing and no one spoke against it. We also did in 22. we wondered if maybe this isn't a project that should move forward. And New York State Parks said the reason you weren't successful is you have too many open grants with the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. We have no parks grants under it, but we had several significant grants, the skylights, etc., which is historic preservation for this building.
Right,
But until we completed all that work, they were not interested in, funding.
right, and I remember seeing that, it was a public hearing for the skylights and a park project grant. It didn't say lake, it didn't say which park.
It did say Lakefront Park project. It did indeed. I have a copy. I had to
It's
submit
not
a
on the-
copy
it's
of the
not on-
public
Right,
hearing.
it's not online, but I could.
Oh,
As far as fishing, just a comment on like recreational fish. Water's shallow here, probably out about 30, 40.
Well,
Yeah, so it's not a really good fishing spot, if you will. And being out, further out in the little bit deeper water off the piers, the fishermen will migrate to the better spots. Right? So they're gonna tell you that fishing off the far end of the piers is gonna be the better place to fish than off the shoreline.
right, and that's my. Is that people ask?
I realize there's someone on the board that I'd really love to give the public a
Sorry.
chance to speak.
No, it's okay. I didn't see any other public hands up.
Okay.
Public, that's my question.
Doug,
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the board and the public, thank you for having this. This is good information. Two things I want to mention quickly, and I want to echo what Alan said. I also did a review of the minutes and all the proceedings related to this. And I go to a lot of municipal meetings, I read a lot of minutes. I knew what I was looking for, and it was not easy to find. The public hearing that was held last year was combined with another action, a local law amending the zoning law. And I don't know whether that's legal to hold two simultaneous hearings. Be that as it may, no one spoke against it, but no one spoke for it. If you go back and look at those minutes, all of the comments were about the proposed amendment to the zoning law. Not a single comment was about this project. I also looked at the environmental review, the secret review that was done. And it was characterized as an unlisted action. And with all due respect, there are no unlisted actions in the village of Cooperstown because it's either in the Glimmerglass Historic District or the Village Historic District. So the fact that it was identified as an unlisted action overlooks the fact that type 1 actions carry a presumption that they're going to have a significant effect on the environment. It also requires a longer environmental assessment form, the full environmental assessment form. It also requires that review be coordinated between the agencies. DEC is involved with this. So I have concerns with how the process went and how the review was undertaken. It was not just nominally flawed. I would submit it was materially flawed. But I'm here tonight on behalf of Peggy and Wayne, my sister and brother, who own the property right next door to this project. And this is not just a park, it's also a residential street. There are a line of residences all along that street. And right now at the foot of Pioneer Street, there's activity during the canoe regatta and 4th of July, etc. But otherwise, it's essentially a residential street. This is going to be attracting a great deal more people, as Michael mentioned, tourists to this area. And these folks are going to be on this platform 12 feet out, being able to look into my sister and my brother's, upper floor of their house. So from the plans and drawings that I've seen, I can't really get a feel for how you have buffered the impact to these immediately adjacent residential property owners. And I've spent a lot of time down there. I used to have a boat on that dock right there. There's actually ample room to slide that over. And I'm not an engineer and I don't play one on TV. But the fact that you're putting that right at the foot of Pioneer Street would affect the view. I'm all for access. I'm all for handicap access. I'm all for recreational access. But as Ellen points out, this doesn't necessarily do much of that. So I asked the board what consideration, and it's a rhetorical question, what consideration was given to the adjacent property owners who are going to receive the brunt of these impacts from more parking and more people, you know, possibly setting up lawn chairs there and hanging out. Fishing wise, there's no fishing there. You won't catch anything there right now. It's dry. And Cheryl and I have been to a lot of national parks lately, and every glass guard we see like that has graffiti etched into it. So that's my personal thought about that. But I'm really concerned about the impacts that this is going to have to what is and what the village is allowed to become a residential neighborhood. That right now, the character of that neighborhood is relatively quiet. It's not an intense use. This is going to increase the intensity and it's going to concentrate it right next to these residences. So given that the review was flawed, that the community didn't really seem to know what was happening, perhaps the board would consider stepping back and going through the process again, and doing it under the light of more public involvement and more public scrutiny. The fact that it's been funded doesn't mean you have to move forward with it immediately. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to make these comments.
I also want to thank the board for holding this. This is very helpful. I'm a resident at 11 Pioneer Street, so this is also my neighborhood. It is a residential neighborhood. And I echo some of these same concerns. You know, we're talking about added light pollution, we're talking about added trash. Already that street, you know, people drive very fast on that street, even though it is a dead end. You know, I would really consider the possibility of adding a speed bump. You know, it is a pedestrian area. There's a lot of children and strollers and dogs, and you know, we're going to be driving more traffic at that spot. It's just going to get worse. You know, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak and say some of these things. You know, we are year-round residents. My husband works from home. We're talking about 6 months of this being very disruptive to that, you know. We're home during the winter months, so we can't really say that this isn't going to be disruptive to us. Is there any consideration for keeping residents, you know, sort of apprised as to when major things are going to be occurring in that area? You know, I would ask that. Any thoughts on the lighting not staying lit all night? So this is going to be my front yard. It's going to be shining into my windows.
Yeah, the lighting again is under the lip of the wall, which is on the lake side of the wall. So obviously you have to see it. Even when you approach, you know, to be fair and honest to you, we do have a bollard light at the transition between the sidewalk and the deck on both sides. We have an option to have unlit bollards versus lit bollards. The bollard light is like a 42-inch stanchion, if you will, and the LEDs are up in the hood, and the lights are projected down, so you're not going to get light pollution up, or even wow, it's primarily there again to illuminate the transition for those. The ADA access off the street, for example, is right there. So we want to make sure that section of the walk there has some illumination. Removed from the nearest street light, there is some overflow of that light, but you're at the limits of the illumination from those overhead light poles, so you kind of supplement that a little bit and get light targeted to the bus, the definite center. But you know, we have the flexibility so to not light the bollards, and the lighting under the lip of the wall is low voltage, so probably gonna be no more than 5 yards. It's-
I would just finish that statement. I would just to say if there is any opportunity to consider being a little flexible, you know, the baseball motif on the glass etching just makes it very
That,
commercial.
that was a very early presentation, and that's what I was trying to show.
Those are good.
Showing it again. Okay, sorry.
But, yeah, if there is any opportunity to consider a kayak launch, I think that would be a really great added feature. And a kayaker, and if you're all, I see people struggle to bring their kayaks down the street, they're carrying them, they're dragging them. It would just be so nice to have the launch just be at the end of the street there.
Yes, Mr. Allen.
Wayne Hangers, I live at 2 Pioneer Street, and I asked you something big or not. Ed Smith built that house in 1986, and the day he built it, he's got a problem. People coming downtown, actually walking through the water, sometimes front lawn and taking pictures. And now, instead of that, you don't have to sit in a chair and sit there in the house all day long. It's right out from beyond the bushes. You can actually sit there, just stare at the living room, all day long. If you want to. The other concern I've got is this beautiful thing that they've drawn, all this pictures and stuff. Food solar paper came out, we talked about flooding the creek, we talked about leaks, we talked about parking. This thing, $4 million, they never mentioned, but and nobody on Pioneer Street knew a thing about it until 2 weeks ago. I thought that's what was strange.
I'm sorry, what was $4 million?
$4 million.
Yes.
Which is part of the revitalization program.
No, it's not part of the New York Forward.
Okay.
No, it's not funded by that, it's a different grant.
I don't see why we need. Because eventually, 10 years from now, something's gonna happen, we're gonna end up paying for it to be fixed. That's like Main Street. I own that building, that bakery building, and every brick has been resurfaced since that's been put in. So there's gonna be trouble, whether ice hits it or who knows?
Glass, for him. Would that glass hold up against any ice buildup that might occur at that end of the lake?
You know, it's a good question. I don't think it would, to be honest with you, if it had big blocks of ice. I live, you know, a stone's throw from the Susquehanna River, and as a kid, we used to go up the river when it freeze over, and you'd see the blocks of ice size of a, you know, pickup there, pushed up on the bank. So if that's the case, then no, but this lake doesn't create that type of ice. But not, I'm not talking, you're not 2 foot, 3 foot iceberg that are being pushed up. But we're clear of the surface of the water by a couple of
The
feet.
plans up on the shoreline.
And the seawalls there to protect.
Right, but the seawall is underneath it. So how does that protect from the actual ice?
We're above the seawall. So does the ice ever come over the seawall?
Yes, absolutely does. We've watched it, yeah, absolutely it does. I mean, I'm really, this is why I'm like surprised that this made it this far. So.
We do have a village board meeting that's supposed to start soon, so if there are any more questions from the public.
Are you planning on?
Oh, I'm looking at Roger.
I'm opposed to this. Frankly. And I love the picture there of the other Pioneer Street, right, showing two maple trees, nice view of the lake. Line change, and
why do we need this? We don't need this. You know, up in 12 Main Street, in terms of the tourists, when they usually during the summer, you can start one place to park. You can 12 Main Street. But once we get here, now you can park there all road. But, you know, the idea being that people are gonna come down to the same as a magnet. And, you know, people looking at it, never really, when they just, represent parents for the people who come houses from country around there. So, I think that this project is well, and I also agree with you, and I'm really sick from COVID, it's like this summer, but I don't remember, seeing, and I was public hearings, I was doing about those, and so somehow it helped me about shuffling the hearing, that we get this special meeting. So I think for that class, I would suggest that this whole thing be reviewed.
Alan, you've spoken a few times.
Yes, the question.
Dr. Lee, thank you very much for taking. Can you explain what the process is going to be going forward?
What the process
Yes.
is. I think this has been very informational, and I think at tonight's meeting, and remember, all our meetings are live streamed and recorded, so you can watch us from the comfort of your living rooms. Probably we will be reviewing the project tonight, and making a decision on
Well, mentioned. It is all great that you write these grants. We did Main Street. Main Street needs to be maintained. Trees are dying. There's a lot, I mean, when you write a grant, you've got to be able to maintain what you've done. Weather secretary, I've been here for 46 years and watching what happens down the lake, because it's blocked away from the lake. I'd be to see one of those northern storms and just coming crashing into those the fences and everything else. I think what the garden club has done with the walkway and the natural plantings, nature sweeps over it, it's fine. It all goes back, it's fine. I do not think we need this.
Process. I think it would be helpful to whole of the as a consideration of goods. The project was put out the bids some weeks ago, and the bid opening was last week. But it is a low bid that we consider tonight. There are also pending permits, one of which is from the Port of Engineers. I'm not sure that's been issued yet. And so this goes into the process that we're asking about, and I think the public comments have been really, we're all really, your comments and comments.
There's no compliance, the board has to decide, and certainly we are aware, and the board is aware that not all the permits are in place at this point. We don't have the contract either from the parks and most of the parks, so there are several considerations that are in. Is there any more comment from the public? Yes.
Yes, I'm Bob Bridget. I'm sorry, but I would just like to present an artistic, aesthetic, emotional value. Okay? In 1981, I filmed in black and white 35mm camera. Every business from the post office to the filling office store on both sides of the street. If I compared that to the photographs I've taken within 5 years on Christmas Eve, you would see two different villages. When I stand on that street at midnight and the moon is 12-degree temperature, you can see the beauty down that street out onto the lake. I want to create an aesthetic value that shouldn't be interrupted. Period.
I have more questions.
My name is Peggy Myers, and I was born here in Cooperstown. I lived here till I was 16, and I have lived close by ever since. When I grew up here, we had 4 grocery stores on Main Street. I can name them. We had two drug stores, no, not pharmacies. There were drug stores then. We had several places to shop, to go. You didn't have to go to Oneonta, you didn't have to go to Utica, you didn't have to go to Albany. You could shop in Cooperstown. You didn't live here. This is how it was when way back when you're not 80 years old. But anyway, now those places, those grocery stores, those 2 Derrick's and Vans shoe stores, they're all been swallowed up by all the different, you can get a baseball bat made, you know, you can get tattoos, you can get all sorts of things, but you can't go shopping in old Cooperstown anymore. But we do still have the flagpole. We do still have 1 traffic light. And, we do still have this beautiful lake and this beautiful vista from the end of Pioneer Street, or you can get the same vista from the Ogasaga all the way to the end of River Street, Council Rock, same vista. Why on earth do we need this, whatever it is, right there in the middle of everything? This gentleman is correct, and Roger is correct. We don't need it.
I have my questions, please, Mayor. I have 2 questions for you based on what you said. I apologize. I seem to be having hearing problems, but God knows how hard it is to get an appointment at Bassett or something. 1, you said the design was accepted. Who was the design accepted by?
We presented it numerous times to the Parks Committee of the village. And
Was it accepted by the board? Yes or no?
I never presented it. to the
Okay, thank you.
board.
That's no. You said there was a low bidder. Who was the low bidder?
We have a low bidder, I don't recall the name off the top of my head. Color, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
That was, public, our bid openings are public, and so.
But I asked, I wasn't told, so I'm just asking.
Are there, thank you so much for coming. This is all really appreciated this evening. Thank you. Michael, thank you. Yeah, but people, I don't know. Just leave on the table out here.
No, right.
Everybody can speak up tonight. We're having to keep the microphone, so if you talk really quite loud. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
And I'll get the thing and the, no, you know.
We're just trying to get the page on
Microphones up there and make sure you weren't here at the meeting. Strategy. So you see your votes.
Yes, but the microphone is way back at the camera tonight, so we're gonna need to project more than normal. If people online are gonna hear it.
I'm calling this meeting November 26th, 5th of the Board of Trustees to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Is there public comment? If so, please just rise, say your name, and you may have heard that our recording is a little back there more, so speak up. Is there anyone? Yes.
There will be, the public hearing is still going to be about 6:30.
Yes, we're probably will, maybe a few minutes after, because we're going to try to get through a few things, but there are 4 public hearings scheduled for tonight. They are on your agenda. Any other public comment?
Well,
Oh, yes, public comment. Could you just give your name and address so we have that?
I'm Matthew Kent. I own the Doubleday batting range in by the park. This is probably, I don't know if this is the right forum. I have no idea if it's the right forum or not. So I just want to come here, introduce myself, and highlight that we have some issues there and make the trustees aware. I have major concerns with the fact that we bought a business which on paper is actually a good location. Normally in the country, if you have a business, a bar or any kind of business that's near a stadium of some sort, you would think it's a good thing for game days or any events that would happen in the stadium. By and large, we're basically the vending for the stadium. The village has nothing there. They rent out the fields, so we're basically the concession stand, de facto concession stand for the stadium. But on any of the major events that happen during the year, we get blocked out. Sometimes literally 100% blocked out, and sometimes just basically blocked out by the positioning or the fact that they bring in opposing vendors to oppose what we do in our business. I don't believe that anywhere else in the village, you let anyone set up a competing business with a business, either on the sidewalk or on the street. And yet, whenever a large event happens in Doubleday, we have a year-round liquor license. We serve beer. We're never consulted. When there's an event, they bring in a beer truck and set up in the parking lot and rope us off. Last year, when they had the Savannah Bananas, one of the biggest events they've ever had in the village, we literally were blocked off from the entire event. The police barricaded our parking. They've had barricades in front of the store. You literally had to climb over barricades to get into our business. The only parking we ever had for the entire event was the video and audio trucks from, excuse me, from the Savannah Bananas that asked us if they could park in our place because there was no place else to park, so they parked at our facility. I don't know who's responsible for making these decisions and scheduling these things or allowing other permits to go, but I really don't think that it's a normal practice to allow competing food trucks or vendors to come in and park in front of existing businesses in the town or the village. We've had tentative plans for several years now to tear down that building and rebuild that building. It's horrible. The mayor came out and saw us there. We met with the historical people at the site. It's a piece of junk. I mean, it's horrible. It's an eyesore. All the effort's gone into trying to fix the stadium, trying to fix the parking lot, try to beautify the area. Honestly, I probably have control of the best way to fix up that whole area, which was rip my building down and put a nice building in there. But why would I do that if the largest events that happen in the village, I'm getting literally blocked out from? So I'm going to assume at this point that it's because most people aren't aware. But I want to know who makes those decisions and how those plans are formulated before I'm going to invest any money. Because it doesn't make any sense. You can't take away the three largest events that happen in a village like this in a year for a business that literally is located next to the stadium and think that you can make a viable business for the rest of the year. So I wanted to bring it up. This is who I am. I'm the hard ass. This is my brother, Chris. He's the one everybody likes to talk to. And everybody who knows me already knows that. But I'm doing my best to just be level and just get it out there so we can find out where the rubber meets the road, as they say. And I appreciate it if there was something addressed to that and some contact was made to us so we know what we're dealing with. If people don't care and that's the way they're going to do it, it kind of tells me what I need to do. And the second point, the last point, is that I was given some documents about the survey alteration on my property. There's two things about it that are kind of comical to me. Number one, it appears to me that the village created their own problem with the road by putting a set of stands, the bleachers, in the existing road. The piece of junk bleachers that the Red Sox gave us for some reason, because they didn't want to throw them in a dump, but okay, we keep them. And then you take 10 feet of the road and you build them there and made the road smaller. And now we don't like the road being smaller, so somebody wants to come take my property and make the road wider. Can anybody see the flaw in that logic? And then secondly, I'm given a survey, which I didn't know anything about. I'm given an appraisal of my piece of land. Now, get this. This one really cracked me up. It equates to about 4% of my property. But I paid over $1 million for the property. And it's not because the building is a gem, as we already agreed. Well, 4% of $1 million seems like it'd be a lot more money than $3,500 that was proposed to me to take that 4% of my property for a problem that the village created by putting bleachers in their road. So I just have a few issues that I know this is probably not the format to address them completely, but I was hoping that by making the board trustees aware of this, that eventually it would stir up some conversations and we can have some way to figure this out. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And I want to point out that all committee meetings are public as well. And I know I shared with you like minutes from our Doubleday meeting. We also do a monthly calendar. I'm not sure when the Doubleday meeting would be in December, but you're welcome to attend that and also speak up because that particular meeting has that Doubleday committee includes representatives from businesses and museums, et cetera, so that you would perhaps be in some ways a good forum. I remember that you did address those issues with us after the bananas thing, so certainly we'll make sure you're.
The double day meeting is next Monday at 2 o'clock.
That's fine. Okay.
You
At
said
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, right in.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any other public comment? No. Okay. Well, at this point, I will point out that in our packet, we have a letter from Carol Rogers Roots regarding the Hometown Heroes banners. And at this point, because it is 6:32, I will open our public hearings. And let me begin by announcing what the 4 public hearings we are holding now are. Proposed local law number 12 of 2024. Amendments to the zoning law adds section 300 temporary use permits. Number 2, proposed local law number 13 of 2024. Amends section 270-12 parking prohibited in designated locations. Glen Ave, north and south sides from Chestnut Street west to the end of the village, to the end of the village controlled section of the roadway. Number 3, public hearing to adopt a new official zoning map for the village of Cooperstown. Number 4, CFA public hearing. Purpose is to obtain citizens' views and comments relative to the submission of an application to Empire State Development for financial assistance under the Restore New York Communities Initiative. This project includes construction of a 51-unit apartment building. The following property will be submitted for consideration: 217 Main Street, a 10,310 square feet vacant commercial property approved for demolition by the village's Historical Preservation and Architectural Review Board at their May 14, 2024 meeting. So I am now opening those 4 public hearings, and if anyone would like to speak to any of those, please let me know. Please stand and say your name and address.
Aviva Schneider, 8 Walnut Street, Cooperstown. I'm here to speak regarding the village's efforts to secure New York State financial assistance for the development of the project at 217 Main Street. I'm speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Cooperstown area. The league has written a letter in support of the village's proposal to secure New York State financial assistance for this project, and I am here to read it. I serve on our local league's board of directors, and this letter written by one of our board's co-chairs has been approved by the board. To the Village of Cooperstown Board of Trustees, the League of Women Voters of the Cooperstown area supports the Village of Cooperstown's efforts to secure New York State's financial assistance for the development of 51 units of affordable housing at 217 Main Street in Cooperstown that will be funded through the Empire State Development under the Restore New York Communities Initiative. The League believes that all levels of government have a responsibility to provide equality of opportunity for education, employment, and housing for all persons in the United States. Since the 1970s, in New York State, the League has supported increased state funding for affordable and accessible housing, as well as incentives to encourage communities to accept their share of the overall responsibility for providing sufficient housing for low and moderate income families. This project is exactly what the League has fought for in the New York State Legislature, having the state provide funding to fill an important need in the village, affordable housing. Locally, our league has supported the village's planning process, and we have continued to monitor the utilization of the master plan for the village of Cooperstown, including the development of affordable housing. The League of Women Voters of the Cooperstown area supports the village as it moves forward in this process, which will improve the quality of life for our residents. And the letter is signed sincerely, Kristen Pulley-Blank, co-president, League of Women Voters of the Cooperstown area.
Thank you, Aviva. Could you give that letter to Jenna for the record?
I was just about to, thank you. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the 4 public hearings that are open?
Name is Jay Bosley. I live at 37 April Road in the Village. On October 22nd, Richard Sternberg, George Fasinelli, and myself, in our capacity as private citizens, visited 3 properties developed and managed by the Casino Group, the company that's planning on the project at 217 Main. The purpose of the trip was to ascertain by direct observation whether the concerns voiced by some local residents that the casino organization projects have brought chaos and disruption to the communities where they have been built, and to assess whether there was evidence of poor management at these 3 locations. We went looking. We went looking for something right. The properties visited were 44 River Lofts, 44 River Street in Troy, Mosaic Village, 55 Sergeant Street in Cohoes, and Entrada, Saratoga Springs, 1 Freeman Lane, Saratoga Springs. At each site, we met with management and staff, inspected vacant apartments, and toured the common areas of the building. Our efforts included the building exterior, common areas, trash and garbage handling systems, as well as the roof at each of the 3 locations. We were accompanied by Rob Holzman, VP of Planning and Acquisitions for the Casino Group, who also gave us a recap on the history and goals of the company. He was very transparent. He was welcoming, he was transparent, and he wouldn't buy us lunch. 44 River Lofts in Troy is a completely rehabilitated factory originally built in the period around 1900. It belonged to the Fluid Peabody Company, which manufactured aero collars at the plant. The building is approximately 6 stories, with most of the apartments on the first 4 floors. The design of the apartments had to work around existing columns and supporting walls, therefore every apartment had its own unique character. The building is located in the downtown area of Troy, across the street from City Hall, which is a multi-purpose building. The area is serviced by bus transportation and is within walking distance of RPI, Russell Sage College, and a local hospital. Most of the tenants work locally and do not have cars. The building has approximately 50 closed circuit cameras and a redundant entry system to keep out non-residents. We worked with Rob Holtzman and the property manager. We wouldn't have got in. Okay. The apartment we visited was in the process of being fixed for new incoming tenants. In our opinion, there was evidence of typical wear within the rental apartments, but no indication that there was any need for major repair. The counter surfaces were granite, the floors were wood composite. Even though the work on the apartment had not been completed, the resident was clean and neat. Inspection of the common areas showed social areas, an exercise room, and a storage area for bicycles. Again, everything was clean, neat, and well organized. I was a safety inspector, and I know when something has been sanitized. And this wasn't sanitized. This was just, it was in order. I think it was in order the day before we got there, and it was ordered the day after, in order the day after we left. Mr. Holzman explained to us the history of the casino group and the fact that they not only develop the properties, but they maintain and manage them. This allows them to maintain control over how subsequent problems are handled. We met with the chief building operations manager at the site, and we met the property manager at the second site we visited. Mr. Holzman brought up for discussion issues with their project in Ithaca, which has been cited by some as the recent non-work of the casino. Privately, in conversation with an acquaintance in Ithaca, one was had, it was made clear that the neighborhood the building was in and the pre-existing situations of many of the tenants accounted for the issues that were raised regarding the property. They were not caused by the shortcomings on the part of casino management. Of specific interest to one of us was the trash handling system that we examined. There were trash rooms on each floor with large bins present. The rooms were clean. There was no evidence of trash or dry fluids or any of the telltale signs that someone old would come and let's sweep the place out, sanitize it. It had the feeling of day to day, which is what we were looking for. We didn't want to be coddled. We wanted to see the real deal, and I think we saw it. The next site we visited was Mosaic Village in Cohoes. Cohoes is across the Hudson River from Troy, and also in an old manufacturing and riverfront community. This is a building of approximately 100 units of new construction hemmed in by historic sites. The building included a daycare center. We met several of the tenants who were very polite and complimentary of the housing. As one said, they wouldn't still be there if there were problems. Again, we toured an apartment undergoing preparation for a new tenant. The common areas, the daycare center, and the playground area. The garbage rooms were organized and clean, and there was no deterioration around the building. There were about 70 closed circuit cameras. The building was nicely landscaped, and the plans were all maintained. The final site was in Entrada, Saratoga Springs, in the city of Saratoga Springs. It is approximately 100 units, 100 unit complex consisting of 4 buildings. Some of the apartments were controlled by an organization that assisted 18-year-olds coming out of foster care. Many tenants work nearby in Saratoga Hospital. The project had the appearance of a typical suburban apartment complex. An apartment was visited. This one was also being turned over for a new tenant. The quality of the appliances and surfaces was excellent. The apartment appeared to have what would be considered normal wear and tear. Again, we met and talked with the managerial staff and noted that there was a waste disposal system that's clean and neat. Again, there were multiple closed circuit cameras around the property. Overall, the 3 of us were favorably impressed. There did not appear to be any significant issues on any of the 3 projects. The on-site managerial staff at each location were both accommodating and professional. The grounds were immaculate, and the work undertaken appeared to be done in the most professional manner. Based on our observation, we found no reason to decline to work with the casino group. Based on our observation and discussion, we would be willing to offer our full support to the proposed Cooperstown project. The problems cited at the village board public hearing appear to be specific to the Ithaca location Well, not evidence of any fashion by the three sites we looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to give your comments for if it's written, I don't know.
I will,
All right.
on the way out.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on any of the four open public hearings? If not, I'm gonna leave them open for a couple more minutes in case someone comes. And we're just gonna go on with a couple of actions. We have some permits to approve. They are in your board packets. Yeah, I'm sorry, I jumped. We'll do the review and approval of our minutes. We have the October 28th, 2024 regular meeting and the November 4th, 2024 special meeting. I know some corrections were submitted already on those by a couple of board members. Did any others see anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of both those meetings by Indeed, and second by Joe, all in favor. Oh,
Jen said she disagreed with my corrections. I reserve the right to review the tape later. Seriously. Unless we accept the corrections.
the one that you submitted.
I wanted to remove the word "it honors war."
In reviewing the recording that was stated, I can remove it if that's what the board wants. According to Nikon, I cannot just change minutes based on what people want.
No, I understand. I'd like the opportunity to review it before it becomes.
33
Then I
minutes.
would not vote, and there might potentially be
Okay.
others. So the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the minutes with corrections submitted, please say aye. There's 4 and opposed. 1 and there's 2. And that, did you catch that, Jenna? It was
Yeah.
George and Richard. Okay, thank you. Moving on to permits. We have several. We have first off, application to use village property, village streets from Doug McCoy Clark Sports Center for the Ugly Sweater and 4-mile race walk on Saturday, December 14th, 2024 from 9:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. Is there a motion?
Motion.
By George, second by Al's hand, second by Hannah, all in favor. The next one is. Oh, I'm sorry.
I may have misheard on earlier.
Oh, I thought there were 4. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3.
Second set of minutes.
I did both. I said, yeah, I did.
They were together.
But they were, yeah, there were corrections to both that were submitted. So now we're on permits number 2. Application to use village property, village ballroom from Sue Weinberg, Winter Carnival on February. Second, that's what I was thinking, that date is wrong. It's Sundays, February 2nd from 2 p.m. until 4 p.m. And I know there were a couple of questions on that.
Yeah, just to make sure we're technically correct, I don't know what the legal carnival entity is, and I don't know what insurance responsibility or coverage they have, so I noticed that the firm was incomplete in that regard, so I was wondering if this is, was it the Lions Club, or what is this sponsor?
This is one event. If you recall, there was it a couple months ago, we did have a complete application for Winter Carnival. And it had the Lions Club as the sponsoring organization with the certificate of insurance. So this is an event that, you know, has gotten a little more specialized, specific now. Let me just say that, but we did approve the Winter Carnival, did receive the certificate of insurance.
My second question, when it comes to the tables that they request, are these village tables or are they plans to those other tables? If this is the second, I think this is one more. Book sales still on, so I don't know. If they're not available, if it's not possible, then that's absolutely.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
There are always two tables up there, and I'm assuming they were ours.
We have 2 or 4. 2 or 3. 3. We can just alert them that there's 3. I will say I attended this. It's a kind of a family event that you can take little kids to, etc., bring kids. And it's a well-coordinated little family event during the carnival. So I think probably one of theirs, they could bring a card table if need be. We'll just alert them that we only have 3 tables. All right, so is there a motion? By Joe, second by Audrey, all in favor? And we have a permit request from Jeff Cass, Cooperstown Film Society, which is under the auspices of the library. They do it in your
Yeah, there's the library's film,
film. Okay. And you can see the dates there, on January 16th, February 6th, and 27th, March 13th, and 27th at from 6 to 10, and then on January 31st, from 4 to 9. During the winter holiday. Is there a motion? Moved by Joe, second by Audrey, all in favor? Now, please. Yeah, you have no more permit. I'm going to now go back and ask again if there is any further comment on any of the 4 proposed, the 4 public hearings that we opened earlier. If not, I will be closing those public hearings. Let's begin with the first one, proposed local law number 12 of 2024, amendments to the zoning law. Add section 300 temporary use permits.
it would be great to get feedback on this, but just so everyone is aware, Chris submitted to the county for county review, and I just texted him and he has not received the county. But if there's feedback, that would be great.
We could just discuss it too. Is there any feedback from the board? So we could still, we have the public hearing on it. There has been, we can vote next time and we will plan to do that. Number 2, proposed local law number 13 of 2024, which will now, if we move it forward with this one, it would be number 12. Amend sections 270-12, parking prohibited in designated locations, Glen Ave north and south sides of Chestnut Street west to the end of the village control section of the road. Is there a motion? Did everyone review it and
Make a motion to accept that change to section 270-12 of the village code.
motion made by Cindy, second by George, all in favor? Number 3, public hearing to adopt a new official zoning map for the village of Cooperstown. You have, when you arrive tonight, on the table, a color map of the new zoning map. Remember, we kind of looked and reviewed this previously at a prior meeting before setting this, public hearing. Any questions, comments?
I'm looking at 5.2. Looking at this correctly, that's the line between Pioneer and First Street, which encompasses our park. And we call it residential areas, the question.
So you don't have concerns, you just had a question?
Right, if that captures what's going on, it triggered this thought because tonight we have a lot of people who were saying that they were trying to protect the residents and interest in the public interest in a park and its accessibility to the public in general. So I didn't want this to do some kind of tension between our focus for the park and what they're saying it is.
No, and just to clarify, there are no changes to this map.
Right.
We're just codifying things that we have already.
No, I recognize that, as we know that our concerns being raised in the context of what we want to do.
Any other questions, comments?
I should ask this question. What district is that sitting in?
I just think we're a residential district.
Okay. Okay.
Any other things? All right, is there a motion on the, I'm sorry. Yeah, on the, zoning map.
Motion to adopt this map as our official zoning map and to authorize the mayor to sign the official.
Motion made, second by Hannah, all in favor?
So I know that you are being now.
The CFA public hearing, for purpose to obtain citizens' views and comments relative to the submission of the, Restore New York, Communities Initiative Grant. We heard two people speak in favor of that. Is there, a consensus on submitting an application? It's okay, but if we just determined that there was something different on this, the earlier seeker we did for this project stipulated 50 units. The most recent application or information they provided us is that it would be 51. And that is now greater than 25% of 200. So it would trigger a type 1 action, and that wasn't the secret we did. So we could approve moving forward if we, you know, have a chance. The problem with this grant is it's due December. Does anyone remember?
No,
I'm sorry.
because we have to give the other involved agencies 30 days.
Yeah.
So unless it's due at the end of December, we.
I think it's, I mean, I think it would be before that.
Is our action, the application being
Yes,
the applicant,
but we aren't going to be able to apply for the grant if we don't go back then, if it is 51 and not 50, without, and a secret.
Well, so I'm thinking of the earlier litigation regarding to the building.
Yep, it's the same thing. When they switched this, I don't know why they changed it.
So the fact that that has been done, what we creating jeopardy ourselves by proceeding with the application for the 51 unit building.
I
Or
believe
to
it.
amend that application for 50 unit, or you know, in that compliance, you can have a 51 unit.
We reviewed it as a 50.
I think we would have to too.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Why is it changed from 50?
I have no idea.
We just saw it.
Actually, Doug, in pointing out earlier, the secret requirements forced me to look up the secret requirements, which made me realize that 51.
They had switched it. Yeah. And they may want to reduce that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, but we reviewed it as a 50.
One other question on the text of this, we cite the HPOS approval, but we are still awaiting the state SHPO's approval of that.
That is correct. Yes.
And do we crosswise like proceeding before we get that?
Not for the Restore New York grant application. They don't request that it all be, it's really the applying organization. And we were the ones applying, and so we would be the ones who would do our secret.
Right.
We often have applied for grants and then have to get, if we don't get funded, we're not going to go through all the mechanisms to go for the state approvals. It's sort of like owning the building before you move forward. So in this case, if we don't get the Restore New York, they don't move it back to 50 and or we don't figure out how to do a seeker public hearing within our time frame, which doesn't seem at all feasible because today's the 25th.
So those are.
What we could do is approve applying for Restore New York for a 50 unit.
Well, my question though is, we don't have to have it, because I thought that was something we were, but our each part of action really had to be covered by the ship. Well, now each part of action was months ago, I thought we had our ship.
There was some.
But we don't have a demolition permit, right? We can't get a demolition permit, I thought, without the state ship.
So there's two.
Yeah,
There's multiple issues. So, a demolition permit could be issued by the county currently if all the conditions of HPAR's certificate of appropriateness were met. What that wouldn't allow is the use of state funding to do the demolition. That's a separate issue. So there was some confusion over who needed to submit the request to SHPO to review this.
And did submit the documents we had given him.
So the developer submitted the documents, but the developer was not aware that the village needed to submit a letter requesting SHPO review. So last week, the village submitted a letter requesting SHPO review. Actually, HPAR submitted a letter requesting SHPO review.
Okay. So, well, how can we do this?
I believe we're fine, except we won't do this.
I think if you just approve it as a 50, you submit it. I mean, the worst that's gonna happen at this point, which we probably aren't gonna change any other way, is maybe we don't get the funding this time. But I don't know how else you do it. At this point, there's not enough in the timelines. I don't think so.
We just figured
As
it out.
we're sitting here, we look at it, because all of our records are showing 50.
Well, we're in our motion, in our notes.
Because that's their
They
submission.
must have revised it, and we did really catch that. that, if you recall, we, as, it was noted, this project went before HPAR, did get a, demolition, approval from our local Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board. We held a public hearing and applied for Restore New York Round 8. That was, all the documentation and information said 50 units. So when we did the seeker for that, we did it based on 50. That closed, we did not get the funding. That was, there were a lot applicants, and we were stymied on 3 days in succession that a public hearing notice had to be published, and we obviously had a weekly paper. It did not occur. So we were out. That was the factor we were told. They opened round 9 in, must have been late September, early October. With board approval, we applied, we said we will send a letter of intent. Our letter of intent was accepted, and we then could begin the process, which is why we were holding the public hearing now. I don't think it registered with any of us. All the information at that point that they sent was 51, and I don't think we noticed the change.
And I have no idea what they changed it. It helped if I called Holtzman and asked about the actual numbers.
You know what? I just sent an email, and
About call, last phone.
She
I just sent it. Let me see if he responds.
May I ask, what is? What, 25%?
Okay, yeah.
What is the 25%?
Yeah.
Exceeding?
So as Mr. Zanalis pointed out, we are within a historic district. And therefore, for seeker, there are type 1 actions, there are type 2 actions. And if you're not a type 1 or a type 2, you're on the listed action. Many things we might consider would be considered unlisted actions. They're not super large projects, but they're not sort of almost inventive projects. There are a series of thresholds set. One of them is in a municipality of our size. If you have over 200 housing units, then that's a type 1 action. It's considered really big. It bumps it into another category. What is it at 200? But because we're in a historic district, seeker reads that if we meet more than 25% of any of the thresholds, then it automatically becomes a type 1 action. Which is 50. So if we go over 50, we're at a type 1 action, whereas we consider this as an unlisted action.
So just get me back to the 200.
Yeah.
Why the 200 criteria in the projects?
Because seeker, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, lists the thresholds for being a type 1 action. And they have established 200 as the magic number,
Unless
unless you're in a historic district.
you're in the story, then it's only a
It's
unit.
over 25%.
That threshold.
50 units. That's why we didn't worry about it at the time, because everybody was talking about a 50 unit. Same thing that happened to us on April Road. The engineer changed the numbers on us.
So is there any, understanding, I mean, if you walk into another lawsuit.
Well, no, yeah, you could. And if Doug's sitting right here, he's making notes, I'm sure. If that is the exact reason once we realized that, I mean, it was not of our making. It was the engineer having changed something on Able Road. That's the same thing that's happened here, oddly enough. My guess is an engineer somewhere
Richard,
not
only
aware of
more
it, that we're in a historic.
Okay, I just didn't know.
That the whole of Cooperstown's in a historic zone. So he may have just, I idea why we suddenly are talking 51 units.
I'm just trying to.
I got you, Joe. We're all on this.
by a unit. Oh, wait,
Hello?
Well, somewhere,
Hello, this is Ellen. Yes, I sent you the email, and just for the record, this is Rob Holston, at Casino Group on the phone. We realized tonight that your first application for which we, applied for Restore New York Ground Aid funding in the spring, it indicated 50 units. So when they opened round 9 of Restore New York, we put our intent to apply in, and we have just realized tonight that our seeker that we did in the spring for that was based on 50 units. We are in a historic district. It cannot be more than, units cannot be more than 25% of 200 and without triggering a type 1 action. We did a type 2 secret. So, and, yeah, so the question is, we do not have time now to move forward on this application to Restore New York. We do not have the necessary 30 days to redo the secret to reflect 51 units. And so I was reaching out as to the rationale for the change from 50 to 51. All right, so we would be fine moving forward with a 50 unit, and the Restore New York application would be based on a 50 unit Restore New York. All right, I'm glad you called me. Thank you so much. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
So we changed that number.
Okay, that's fine, because we're becoming
That's
smaller
correct.
rather.
Now we're back to this. This is your favorite one.
Yes.
All right, so is there a motion to submit the application to Empire State Development for financial assistance under the Restore New York Communities Assist Initiative for a 50-unit apartment building? Made by Audrey, second by, I saw Cindy's hand go up, second by Cindy. It was done, not really, he didn't give an explanation, he said it can go back to 50. It was done in some of the additional planning documents since the first design, I guess, in the spring.
More two bedrooms.
So the motion was made, and yeah, that's essentially what they could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, just switch one of the 1 units. So motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. We, all right. We're moving on to our zoning officials report, which is included in your packet. The planning board did not meet this month, but you have received the ZBA and HPAR minutes digitally prior to this meeting. Are there any questions or comments for our CEO? Motion to accept the zoning officials report. Moved by Cindy, second by George, all in favor. Moving on, public safety, police committee.
Just about the additional firms, so. I can remember Peter Hatches in this county, and so we should have, we obligated to, undergo under 60 training hours. Out in the year. So certainly by the time the first season comes around, we should have a fully qualified officer. Couple of criminal items that are vandalism is obviously neighbor disputes and lawn damage and allegation of the damage to lawn was intentional. There was also harassment listed there, that actually was a domestic incident. We did have an incident up on Brooklyn Avenue where apparently there was a gal jogging about 9:30 in the morning, somebody in a blue pickup truck stopped, the operator got out of the car, exposed himself, and he was, engaged in pleasuring himself and whatever. Police responded, the operator of the vehicle failed to leave the possibly found it's described as a blue, possibly blue green, four-door pickup truck, rust in the bottom, vehicle was not been seen. Apparently, the sheriffs had a similar incident sometime prior to that, and again, despite the efforts by our officers up and down Brooklyn, seeing if there was any video cameras that may have captured, the vehicle information, the investigation was going. That was up to the local side. Other than the new Holstein hearing, fundraising some significant like one, because we found one and Holstein. This particular skill set. We moved to a key unit, storage in the so
We have a lot of problems with the baseball plates. Absolutely. Well, I think that's what I was.
Questions, fire?
The fire committee news is that not only do we have a bottle, we have a truck. $40,000. I'm not sure what the status is.
I have the contracts here. I've been with the city of Onion and drafted a very basic contract that if it's the board's pleasure, the city of Onion plans to pay $40,000. And we have a contract that each party would sign. If the mayor is directed to sign it this evening, we'll send it down. They'll be signing it, and one of the reasons it's at 40, just so everyone knows, is there's about contracting $78,000 worth of repairs before they feel it's suitable for them to use.
And an email was sent on this. We weren't asking you to make a decision at that time, but we did point out that the one and only offer we had initially was $20,000. We could tell they were interested. They do need a new truck. Their current ladder truck was out of commission for about 5 weeks this year. So they are looking at this truck, once they put this money into it, as a backup. The beauty of it is it's within our county and would still be accessible for all mutual aid as another aerial truck to the repertoire. And we said 20 was probably too low. And so they did come back with 40, but they were preparing their budget and wanted to know if we'd be amenable to this. I received no negative responses from board members. So that now it's before you to do this, so.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the agreements for the agreement for sale of equipment at the surplus line truck to the city.
Second by George, all in favor? All right, motion to accept, public safety committee report. By Cindy, second by Hannah, all in favor. Moving on, Doubleday Advisory Committee.
One question brought up in the committee was, there's a grassy area to the Elm Street side of the third base pavilion. Someone has offered to buy a few picnic tables to put there for teams to enjoy their time of the field. This one,
So would, Steve Murphy be making a donation to the Friends of Doubleday and then they're putting them in? And are they the picnic tables that are made from our old bleachers? Fabulous, that's all.
you need to go on that.
We don't have.
We don't really have any say over the Friends of Doubleday.
But
Oh, but they're probably, so yes.
Yeah, I just a question, often we have these discussions donated. Equipment and storage and operation, maintenance, cost. We're all, we could store them under the bleachers in the winter and return store.
Yes, they would be.
Yeah, there's plenty of room to store them under there.
Currently, aren't those old bleachers sitting outdoors? Where are they?
Yeah, they're stacked outside.
Yeah, so this is a wonderful reuse, and what we can do is, once they're in place, even put a little, you know, sort of placard on them and say, these are original, you know, Doubleday bleachers being repurposed, if you're interested in one. That's like, so. So, motion was made, and,
Yeah, I'll move to accept the donation. Or
um,
to accept, to authorize the donation for these on public property.
second by Anna, all in favor?
thank you. Richard, is there any updates on the Jersey situation?
I asked, no, there isn't actually. I asked, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I was on vacation last week. I haven't heard of Jersey. I guess he needs to know that. Maybe it would help if you called this time.
Yeah,
Call
we have a
last week.
meeting on Monday, so I will follow him back to Mickey's place if necessary.
But he said he did put it in order.
We put it in already?
He said,
He did, okay.
I didn't say he did put it in order. I said he said he would.
All right, thank you. And then just an update about the field scheduling, there was some concern from Henry C. about giving the school a deadline, because he knows the inner workings of the league and said it would not be so practical. So we decided that we'll touch base with them December 1st and see where they're at. And
I noticed it said December 1st here, in our minutes, it said what I said, which was December 10th. So I don't know if that makes a difference. I don't know why it got reported as the first to
I
them.
think we had been I think I missed the 0 on here.
No, that's fine. It had historically sort of been about December 10th, you know, before the school kind of breaks for the holidays. And we understand the difficulty of that.
Right.
But all we were trying to do was say, get the dates in, you know, put them in, because if they start looking up, you're gonna lose them otherwise.
Right. And
So,
there was
I would go,
a lot of pushback on the second part of it. Well,
that
that's
is
the mother.
always historically, even with other deputy clerks
Yeah.
handling that. So, I would say it was actually December 10th, which it had been for a number of years.
Okay.
I think it's the, perhaps the lack of continuity in administrative staff there.
Yeah, I guess historically, the baseball league, struggles to get the schedule out. until the
Absolutely,
February, so.
yeah, it's always a good thing.
Any questions for anyone? No.
I think, relative to, Matt Kent speaking tonight, I don't know if his concerns were ever addressed at a double-day committee.
Not now.
Okay. If he doesn't come to the December meeting, I think it's important to bring it up again because, we did hear these complaints, particularly relative to the bananas event. And it was my understanding that the hall was working with the neighboring businesses now, but if that can't be the case, then, that's something we need to kind of look at.
Yeah, and I think that brought to my mind too, that when we have these events in the Doubleday parking lot, the committee has never really been part of that conversation. So we haven't really seen a site map of like
The Hall of Fame.
the Hall of Fame roping off
Yeah.
those businesses, so maybe it's another conversation.
Yeah.
This goes to the sidewalk, like, the same season, selling the property. How does that work? I mean, in a way, the lot is a sidewalk in front of a private business, and why, are they eligible, is eligible to, and how, where did you get the authority to do anything?
When, I think what's happening here, because he stopped by and spoken with me about a week or two ago. I suggested he come here tonight. I think when we give the hall for Savannah Bananas authority, they put it in their contract that they will control the vending for their event. So I think that's why these people, they bring in their vendors. I'm sure they're being paid by these vendors. And they then declare, they don't allow outside vendors, which are really inside vendors, because there are vendors in, is what I think is happening. It's in the contracts that we're signing with Savannah Bananas, the Hall of Fame.
We didn't sign it with Savannah Bananas,
Right.
that was
The Hall of Fame.
It
Yeah,
seems,
we
so
did.
that's an interesting issue. So can we review these contracts now? So that we could talk to the level of our businesses?
Yeah, totally. And what we did do was give permission for the field. That was approved at a board meeting to allow Hall of Fame use of the Doubleday lot. It was my understanding, though, that for the Hall of Fame games, and I was interested, I wish I'd asked him what other events he was talking about, because we know that was not good scene for the bananas, but that type of thing isn't planned for the future. It's my understanding for the Hall of Fame events weekend, I mean, the school is there, they are vending, there's no blockage of their place then.
Building of people who sell very similar products. He says it was that.
Absolutely.
So it seems to me that we have to write our authorizations so we can talk to these local businesses. I mean, we have enough leverage with the capital that these people want to leave. So if you were part of the contract, businesses do their sidewalk, I think we should resist them. Absolutely.
I think we need to look back at that too and what we did, because they didn't take the parking lot. We even opened up the parking lot for paid parking last year. That's why I'm sort of confused.
They took it from a line about 2/3 back. I think in the agreement, they had exclusivity for a line about, they cut off the parking lot. The merchants were very happy because we gave them a lot more parking spaces. But it didn't protect the vendors or the business owners around it.
Yeah, that was it was the same event that giant, vending apparatus was there. That they were complaining about as well.
And
That was, classic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was classic. The Hall of Fame, I know we rent the front part of the field or the parking lot, if you recall. We gave it to some nonprofits, et cetera, other little businesses. They were on the front part closest. But from about the dry cleaners back, it was open for paid parking.
So next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we, we're together, paperwork from people. I think we just have to do it. So this business, I mean, this fellow just wanted people inside his business. He wasn't even selling our building issue. But he probably should be involved in this much.
Well, because he sells alcohol, that we may not have appropriate limiting to come to.
Come off the premises.
Well, what we do with other restaurants and so forth,
Generally,
we got them selling one, but we're concerned with not the restaurant.
generally speaking, unless you have a very special permit from the liquor authority, you can't sell outside.
Okay. Whatever prerogative this business has, we should do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's talking with the whole thing as well, so that they understand the concerns of things, right? I know it's been a concern of Cooper Country Crafts for years as well, too.
I'm sorry.
Cooper Country Crafts, they're in Double Court, oftentimes when there's events in Doubleday, there's vendors blocking the TV line and
We've done results to prove up with them.
Thank you, Rama. Motion to accept Doubleday Advisory Committee minutes. By George, second by Cindy, all in favor. Streets Committee.
just a couple updates on things that are in minutes. Regarding the travel, we are still working on reconciliation with the county, which has been a very difficult process this year, and we will not do as much money as we would hope. So more to come on that. The reason is that there's, and as Nicole has pointed out in the meeting, the invoices for maintenance just keep coming. So we're gonna have to work out a better arrangement. The arrangement previously was that the village paid for all of the maintenance. And it didn't go into our reconciliation with the county. That was a complete failure in terms of our relationship as well. So we transferred those maintenance costs to the county and we factored them into their reconciliation with us, which is also not working exceedingly well. I mean, the big picture here is that the travel is very expensive to run. And it doesn't pay for itself, and the village picks up the additional costs. So there will be, hopefully our next meeting that we can talk about. I did want to point out in bullet 3, the concern with the OPT drivers was not having a walkway. And I think that we will determine that's the county's responsibility, not ours. Under street sidewalks and creeks, the Elm Street sidewalk is finally done before the asphalt and concrete, well, asphalt can be closed, so they got the concrete down before it got very cold, so very fortunate to have the new sidewalks.
And I enjoyed walking around, I would say, the north side, going to, where it's, there's a lot of information.
I agree. Yeah.
40% of it is inaccessible.
Yeah.
So I think it's great, and especially now with, soil being really soft and it's treacherous, if you step off that hill, you have to be active and
So we will need to let those adjacent owners know about the bushes. The other thing that Mitch and I are working on is to get them to realize that they can never use rock salt on that new concrete. That the concrete texture is weird. You can never get rock salt on it, but the shoe is especially important. So we're working on wording for that. We're trying not to recommend a specific product, while at the same time letting them know what they need to be careful. So we're working on that. And the other thing I just want to update you on, the Army Corps of Engineers was here starting last week. They came from the Baltimore office. They seem to think when we all mentioned snow, that we were in the pipe dream, but it's not. And so they cut some of their work short last week. They will be back again. I did send you their scope that they had shared with us by email as a scan so that you could see the really amazing work that they're going to be doing for us in terms of progress related to lower work as well as our storm project.
Let me ask a question of moving to the street. So Mr. Kent also brought up the research and all of the appraisal of the property. Was there, I mean, I don't know where you are, was there, we're not proposing a swap of land?
Not really. There was essentially, what we know is we have a bit of a pinch point. He's right. When those bleachers, long before any of us were set, they did come out on village property a bit. The road is currently, it's like 19 feet. But in order to have, two vehicles pass safely, it would need and put in a ADA compliant, because right now, if you think about it, we have no sidewalk to the ADA seating on the first base bleachers. They go down the road facing cars coming at them. So the idea for the Follow-Away was to put in an ADA compliant sidewalk. When you take that much of the road, then you need about 2 feet or a foot. There's a picture of it at some point. And it's a little triangle. If you go there, in fact, the one picture I sent sort of showing where village ends on Follow-Away, when it went from the post with the pink tag over to the speed bump sign, that's where we begin. We go down and there's a little bit of a triangle we were asking to get from him.
So my point is, isn't our lot, our parking lot contiguous to this property? So we can't find a sliver of land to. I mean, because he's saying $3,500 is not enough. And if you're doing that, we heard his discussion, it just seems to be a landslide.
But if you want, it will be in a different locale. It may not be as beneficial to you. But that's in.
He's thinking about entrance and Follow-Away.
So we picked for 100, and he knows that, and he's very excited about it. Also, the 4 new fast chargers that will be would be going, the ADA one, compliant one, would be able to get on the sidewalk that will be constructed and go right into his business. So hopefully, I think his brother Chris was very much a little more familiar with all this. And, I agree with you. I think that there could be something. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Motion to accept streets report by Hannah, second by Audrey, all in favor?
Two action items on the buildings committee. First one, committee recommends the board of trustees that the village submit a letter to Minnesota to spend grant money on heat pump for the wastewater treatment plant office in Lathrop.
Motion made by Richard, second by Cindy, all in favor?
Second action item, I'll make this motion to recommend to the Board of Trustees, the village issue another requested proposal for cleaning services.
Motion made, second by
No.
Joe, all in favor? That it for buildings?
The buildings, the elevator's working.
Is this in environmental facilities moderation, the buildings,
I think it's part of your finance.
projects,
Yeah, it's part of your finance. Motion to accept the buildings committee report. Second by Donna, all in favor? Moving on to finance, I know that there is a desire to pull, an item.
Yeah, I have a proposal that we go through the items I want to go in the rest of the consent, but I want to move those things along.
Okay, so which ones should we pull off the consent agenda?
Let's start with, the portfolio report, the one that we scored on. We have, just back up today from this further, it wasn't in our comments, I don't know. It was in the supplemental package, it isn't. I just want to report that the grand total today, it was, our revenue from all sources is $492,900. We budgeted $465, so we beat revenue expectations, and we have, so thanks everybody who makes that just a little too. There are a couple of bills that are coming in, but they, according to our regulation, plus the $2,000. So that for is a very good point. So I want to be sure.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
What is the after system work in our favor?
Let's see. Is that the passport?
Yes.
Okay, so the passport produced 86,000. If I really want to. So,
Yeah, I think we should do it.
I see a lot of people using it, so. Yeah, so that's overall, so coins, by the way, 8,300. So that takes care.
Two still issues that have money, and we're having this proposal. So we will call in the lookers.
On the, now turning to, the mortgage tax revenue that we get, we have partly in the town of Middlefield, and partly in the town of Otsego, and the county mortgage tax that's assessed against sales and property and building is shared with us. Now, we budgeted, an estimate of $35,000 in revenue. We get these in two tranches. So the first round of taxes in is $13,662. However, the first wave according to that typically is the lion's share far exceed what we get in the second round. So for example, in 23-24, we got 14, well, 50, let's see, we got 15,000 in the first segment, and it's 26,000 in the second. So if that goes to forward, we are not likely to reach our $35,000 in revenue. That's mortgage taxes revenue, so it is substantially less than. So just for budgeting purposes, we should be there.
It would be about, we think at the best, we might get about 20,000, which is about a little over half of what we budgeted.
Right.
Can you answer the question, why is it so far off in what we
We, oh, well, I'm looking at the budget.
Yeah, I mean, the causes are the numbers. The causes, I think, have to do with the spike in interest beyond property about the and we have the highest percentage in the about 3 county area of people buying for cash. Now we're losing our beaches. Very interesting. The next item is the first point about the. Well, it also goes to show that it's positive, because of the code, where people are using a younger and how to do it. So, I just also want to call out the Delaware engineering invoice, which I will move approval pay in the amount of 23,720. Purchase, there's a list of those. I think it needs to be $23,000.
There's an extra one before the first one, so it should be 23,000.
Right, okay. So, we've been talking a lot about, this project, which is a, investigation into the excess amount of water that's flowing through our water treatment plant, which is causing us to have various, violations of our permit. And we are investigating that now, and that's what this is possibly doing, what's called the inflow and infiltration study of our sewer system. Inflow and infiltration is stuff into our system from outside. The sewer uses are the leaks in it, so the rainwater comes out. Our people don't have something water into it to process erosion. So one of the problems, or one of the elements of we all should be aware of this, we rebuilt substantially on the first water treatment plant. I still can't tell from the work they're doing that we are reckoning with the fact about whether we establish a project based on the scope of the project. And whether we're getting at the issues in this kind of study, totally right now. I don't have an answer, but I think we need to be really is proceeding with this, because it's hard for me to believe that there is that anything really is substantially changing before, in terms of flow. And before so it's a pretty complicated thing. The water and sewer boards looking at water, looking at it. I say all of that with the percentage of it, it's a big number for a lot of everybody's attention. And we approve the plan. And others are doing it, it's supposed to be.
Motion made by Joe, second by Cindy, all in favor. Just on that one, I want to point out that we had discussion on their contract and did approve that contract at the last meeting. And we did have Delaware engineers, 2 of them come to the wastewater treatment, the water and sewer board, basically to make a presentation, and a handout was distributed to all of them. We've known for some time that we have infiltration, and that is why the village went for a CFA that was funded for inflow and infiltration. And the goal is to utilize that $80,000 grant to do camera work and smoke testing and other analyses to determine what's going on. And hopefully when that grant is complete, we will then be able to apply for some funding. We've also discussed the idea of having, using, wastewater treatment plant funds, their budget, to hire an individual to actually do inspections. Because we think there are quite a few, dumping into the sewer system, and of course, by our, laws, that's illegal. And we've certainly put notices to that effect in our village voices and, tried to alert people, but, you know, there isn't much impetus to make the change, if you haven't been identified as doing that. So that may be something that next spring we will look at hiring a temporary individual with authorization to go to all the homes and inspect them. Just.
So we approved the budget. The question. So this next invoice is with Delta Engineering, so we owe this money, I recommend we pay it, but if we have a lot of discussion tonight, we thought to do about whether we continue with this project. So how would you be approving the $7,005 for the
Second by Aubrey, all in favor?
The next item, we talked to, person about this technology, put it up there, but if you do not, when you paperwork, Deb said that I was going to computer training, to make a presentation about this stuff. That's what it's doing. Or is it? So, right, but definitely assured me that they were trying to do this. So, other than that, I move that we approve this water consent of the rest of the items.
Is this, number 6, the EFC, request for reimbursement of unspent? So
Yes,
it requires confirmation. So is it Deb who's going to confirm this, or is this need board approval?
well, this is interesting. I like the top of both of their houses. You see two papers here, environmental facilities, corporation correspondence. And the letter that came out, on Burns approved, said, yes, we'll take this $18,000 that's left over, and we will apply it to your loan. You can defer the repayment of the money. But he said, we have to do it indirectly by declaring this a loan to you, and then we'll pay off the loan with the money. And my question was, in creating this loan, that does not create any interest payment. It's being loaned for interest. It sounds like this is something.
It's almost a bookkeeping wash.
A bookkeeping wash, and I just want to make sure there's no interest about. I didn't get an answer from Deb on the students.
Why don't we, just to be safe, have a motion saying we're in agreement with the recommendation as proposed by EFC on this motion to directly utilize the water infrastructure improvement grant funds to offset debt service payments. And that amount is the $18,006.21.
I'll second.
All in favor? So, is that also including your personnel finance?
Yes.
Where's the HMEOs on there?
They're in the.
They're in the auxiliary packet.
Is that, can we take a look? And both of them were quite good, and so we had one to take the full-time position and one to take a seasonal labor.
All right, so in your addendum, you see two employee status change forms, one for William Barrett for the labor position and one from Thomas Spencer for the streets MEO position and his starting salary. Motion to approve those separately, I think, so by Cindy, second by George, all in favor?
I want to make one more note in your, packet, your supplemental packet was, a letter which, I'm trying to receive the mixed promotions, our treasurer, Bill Barron, is resigning as of January 10th. The reason is because she was engaged to be married and moving to Tennessee, and we've got long talks about her now fiance and just so glad. For her, that was so sad for us. She was thoroughly treasure. She had an insatiable interest in learning how to go about this with the plan. She's never not known the answer or quickly found the answer. Any questions on that? She's got a really asset for the village, honestly, personally.
Thank you for your time. So we have now, we didn't have the motion to approve the consent agenda, so. But moved by Cindy, second by Hannah, all in favor?
We have to make a motion to accept with regret that resignation.
Yes, I was gonna say, and I assume you called attention to it, but it really wasn't on the original agenda, so we will. I'll move, and I agree with you. Those of you who chatted a lot with Deb know that she, her brother and sister-in-law live in Tennessee. She's visiting, and she's going to be very happy to move to Nashville near them and marry Rick. So, with regret, but I move that we accept the resignation of Deb Barron as our treasurer effective January 10th, 2025. All right, all in favor?
I'm going to explore a motion to that.
Seriously, she won't know. She doesn't have to read this. Motion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I will now make a motion that we advertise for the position of treasurer. By Cindy, second by Cindy, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we've gotten through that. Welcoming home Cooperstown, there's a flyer, it's gone out. We're so fortunate to have this really organized, Welcome Home Cooperstown committee. And that has gone, the Chamber of Commerce is printing the flyers. This is the same type of event that we tried last year for the first time. It was quite successful. So it'll be on the first Tuesday, December 3rd, from 4 to 7 p.m. There are festivities at Village Hall. Weather permitting, there'll be the same little fire thing that was last year with cover underneath it to protect the ground, etc. There'll be hot chocolate, children's story time in the library. There's going to be refreshments and a craft for children. And then there will be the candles that you would often see at the museum's prior candlelight evening events in front of the businesses. And there are 22 businesses at this point who've already agreed to be open that night, stay open and welcome shoppers that season. New this year, and this is kind of exciting, is that the Hall of Fame has decided to be involved, and at 4 o'clock that day, they're offering free admission to the Hall of Fame, the locals, and they are having a performance by the Pathfinder Bell Choir. their, facility. So, there's a lot going on, pretty exciting, and, we're looking forward to that. Well, as the same as last year, Welcome Home Cooperstown will not have an event in January because that's when they get together and plan their calendar for the year. New York Forward, again, no word, no contract, nothing to report. Lakefront Park platform, this is where we would discuss, and, I think that obviously there is consent that, this is not something that we want to move forward at this time. We wouldn't have been able to approve any bid anyway, because the, Army Corps of Engineers, they have the DEC and several of the Office of General Services and other permits, but they do not have, the Army Corps of Engineers and discussion.
So you tabling or?
So we want to see if we have these kids, so we're not sure act on these kids.
We
Oh,
can't-
it's not tabled until you bring it up. Well, it's no, it doesn't exist.
Are we, when will we take time to evaluate and sort of, comments from the public and about to do this on the board,
We could take time right now, if you like. Or do you want to set a different time? You decide.
we can do it on the time, I think we've got the time. The legislative session, but I think, for my part, hearing from the public and various concerns I've seen, which, if we follow others, it's interesting to hear, if we follow the
Thank you.
So you're saying a different or separate meeting or?
Well, I know we're closing the holiday season, I don't know if we want to have a special meeting to do that, but like, whatever we do that, let's give it the space, so that, you know. So I don't have a recommendation. I don't know what people do this, not, probably especially, you know, opposed to it, but I guess.
Can I ask a question? Do we have to formally, what is it in the bid documents? Would we have to formally approve or reject? Is there a 30-day deadline?
I don't know.
I don't know, I'd have to look, see how the.
All right.
how that goes.
Well, if it turns out that we have a time frame, we would have time in our December meeting to reject. Yeah, so that's all I want to ascertain.
Right, because they haven't, I mean, we put these people in the past or. So it's not to be orthodox and broken.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right. All right. Cooperstown I study that is, you know, progressing still. We're, hoping, as I say, they're going to spend a large portion of that, $80,000 for camera work, and in particular to try and determine where the inflow is coming from. Round 9, Restore New York 2017 May. And the resolution is in your packet. I move that we approve the resolution for the application for Round 9 Restore New York, and that it be signed by the trustees.
We have to amend that.
Yeah, we have to amend it to 50.
You're going to amend it, could I get the other wording change?
Yeah.
And that is in the third paragraph, about the preservation of community resources, and I don't want to use language that we have to use, but it seems.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just changing that. Which one's in the
Third paragraph. Third one. under that line, it talks about the preservation of community resources, and I would suggest we use the word like improvement of community resources.
It is formulaic, it is the
That's
resolution
what
they
I-
said. I'm not sure.
It's hard for me to use the word preservation when you're running for regulation.
Resources like the one.
So with the change, and I'll move this, that we approve this resolution with the change, the construction of a 50-unit affordable housing building. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Richard, all in favor? Cindy, do you want to, you already touched on this, but the fact that our warm weather Maryland engineers retreated in the sight of snow, but I believe they are returning.
They will be returning, they're keeping their eye mostly on the weather, and, they will be back. One of the things that I didn't even understand until they sat with us and talked through their scope is that in addition to looking at Willowbrook, they are actually looking at all of our stormwater infrastructure. I mean, as it relates to Willowbrook, but it's fantastic that they're working bench, they're financial covers, and that's just an added bonus for us, that's stormwater.
There are two things I've put on here, and one is in your additional agenda items, and this is incredibly exciting. This is item number 7. I received an email just today with this letter attached, indicating that we've been chosen to join the Pro Housing Communities Program, and we look forward to working with the village. This was, if you recall, a letter of intent was submitted by the deadline last February, and it seemed phenomenally onerous to get a lot of this information up. But I want to give a great deal of credit to our CEO, Chris DeVille, who did do all the submissions on this. And this is essentially strengthened up, and you can see that you are now eligible to apply for various discretionary funding programs with up to 650 million in funding available. These doors would have all closed to us had we not become a pro housing community. So very, very exciting news for the village, and a job well done. And the other thing, I would like to make a motion to go to RFP for the consultant under our VOS LWRP grant. I make a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it, to discuss it, to explain it.
Yeah, sure. This is, as you know, we received a $500,000, a little over $500,000 DOS, local water pump revitalization plan grant in order to fund what was determined to be a 9E plan to address the algal blooms and the issues with the lake. We have been, as you know, funding Upstate Freshwater Institute. We support the scientific advisor, etc. This part of this grant involves having a consultant do a lot of the coordination. It's obviously not something we can do, or we can task 5 members of our watershed supervisory committee. So this is a request for proposal as designed by the Department of State to seek a consultant to begin assembling the advisory committee, to begin carrying out all the tasks associated with the 9E plan.
So the state has got this template criteria.
Absolutely, and it has to specify. There are ultimately, when we get our contract, we don't have a contract with that one yet either. There are about 25 tasks And they pulled out, I asked them, I said, where can we do this? And they pulled out the task that we should be asking a consultant to do. They then reviewed they reviewed that with me and they provided the template they sent in.
So we know what. We know what.
It's, yeah, all the tasks that ultimately, when we get a contract, we don't, will be.
Among the tasks is grant management.
I specifically asked that one, Cindy, the one I was told. They can facilitate with some reports, but the Village of Cooperstown, as the recipient of these funds.
But I assume that they can facilitate the NWPE reporting, for instance, and some of the people who are, oh, that's
Absolutely.
and there is an NWPE requirement. I saw that in something that.
Those actually have had, they've gone in. They already have to go in before we even get our contract.
Yeah.
So the businesses like UFI and OLA, everyone sort of associated with this has had to complete the MWE forms. All right, so the motion is made and seconded. Is there all those in favor?
So, we spoke once again about the dog park and, my knowledge of it has been going to property ownership and some of the other concerns, though Janet did so kindly reach out to the contacts in Hamilton to learn a little bit more about what kinds of challenges and hopefully some positive remarks as well, that they have experiences working in the dog park, and I don't know.
I will send them out. I just got the positives and the costs,
Oh,
so
you
I'll
did?
send a couple emails tomorrow.
Yeah, they do have some challenges that we should consider, I think, if we do go into the dog park, but it would be nice to, at least initially I hadn't seen the cost in it all, and hopefully some positive things for having in the dog park. So that's where we are with that. Badger Park, there was some discussion about what the Friends of the Park will be doing, and I think they asked about 2 stumps in the sign. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
I haven't yet. It's on my list of things to do.
Okay, and they did ask about the ice rink, and that would be going in before Thanksgiving.
We've got it going, halfway there. We'll have everything ready by the way we roll out.
Okay. Well, they are going to be working on the spring money that needs to be raised. And we're very excited about it. And that project. Then Randy Smith did talk about the Lakeland concert series, which he did give us a little preview of what he's looking to do next year. He did share with us that he will be asking for an increase of his budget. So, I propose that we meet for budget time to discuss it. I had comments about these comments. When it comes to doing vendors, I was told we need to check with our insurance company because they may have something to say about your being sold on public property. I also think that what you heard from Mr. Kemp this evening about his concern with the beer truck from the establishment that's going through, that there is another establishment here in front that is going to have similar concerns about the road selling alcohol in proximity to their business, which sells alcohol. Okay. Good to know.
I have a basic problem with the selling beer, that I agree with you, so total, complete, basic problem. I'm dealing with an alcoholic right now, close to me, and I will have, nothing of the village deal with the board.
We essentially have a no alcohol in our parks policy now, so this would be trying to make an exception, and we're just, if that's the consensus of the board, then we would not be moving forward there.
There's consensus on it,
The board finds that it sees no reason to make exceptions to this no alcohol.
Second one. Second by Joe, all in favor? That's it. Thank you. Motion to accept the Parks Board report.
Second.
All in favor? Community and environment.
I apologize if the minutes were a little late, we got them by email. And to also have in your supplementary packet, we have one late, it took one time to get them together. What did get in your packet are the two action items. So you have in your packet a climate smart communities pledge resolution. This is not new, this is 10 years old. So we don't have to do anything with that. But I wanted you to be aware of the history that came with it. The two action items are to establish a smart communities task force. Rather than create yet another committee, what this resolution suggests is that our current community and environment committee serve as the climate smart communities task force. There's a motion.
I second this.
All in favor?
So like the pro housing communities thing, that it feels like we were working on and working on and working on, and all of a sudden it happened. The climate smart and clean energy community stuff, we've been working on for a decade, and it doesn't seem like we've gotten much traction. And now between some very helpful people at the North Valley Economic Development District and the intern from Sunil Yanta, who's working with us, we have finally got some traction. And so very suddenly, we were told, you qualify for money. And fortunately, one of those monies that we qualify for is a $5,000 grant that we can use for anything that is green. But we need to create a fund to put it in. So I spoke with Deb, she suggested a trust and agency fund. We can call it the Green Trust and Agency Fund. And I have a resolution for you establishing that.
And that's in your packet. Just a reminder to everyone that trust and agency carries over. It's not like our annual budget. Those funds sit there until there's an invoice or something that will be paid for by them, and then they're utilized. It's the way people make donations for park benches, trees, that sort of thing. So till we buy something, we utilize it.
Assuming that we get it, I will say, it was like, you're now eligible for this money, but it's going fast because there are all these other places that are eligible for this money too.
And 50%, this is NYSERDA funding, and 50% of this have already kind of been distributed. Yes, before we reach our required goals.
Yeah.
So we have to apply for it.
No, I submitted it, but she was like applying it, and if you all said no, we just didn't projected it. But
If we did get the money, we would.
she goes first, when did they learn? Who knows? This whole thing seems to be on a timeline that I do not claim to understand. She's invested by the end of the year.
So the motion is made and seconded, right?
I don't.
All right, I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
establish a community trusted agency fund.
Seconded by Audrey, all in favor?
What is the task force? I'm sorry, Dr.
I think I made the motion and Joe seconded it.
Thank you.
And then Richard cleared
And we did approve that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Cindy, this doesn't mention the 10,000, or is that separate?
That's separate because that has to be project specific, so it can't just go into the.
Okay. But just to confirm, because we've really been talking about the 5,000 here, but to keep everybody in the loop. The paperwork was submitted for that potential grant as well.
That's the one we approved under builders.
Yeah, so that 10,000, I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that.
So, I'm sorry, where's that money from? It goes right into it.
It wouldn't be stored in the trust
It would be,
agency. Mhm. All right, motion to accept the community and environment committee minutes. Second by George, all in favor? Moving on to water and sewer, what?
Yes, I was away from that meeting, minutes are probably forward, probably to prove one is an action on the, which is to, get one approval to establish a $60,000 fund account, funded with $60,000 to, from the water and sewer accounts. In front of the island of the work for that was a recommendation by former leaders of the water and sewer.
I'll second it. I'll just add, in case you're wondering about this, we did get an $80,000 grant. 20 is a village cost, 60 is coming from the grant. But there's, as in most grants, a slow reimbursement process. And what we're hoping for with this IMI study and grant is to be able to move through the data, do all the testing, figure out where we have inflows and infiltration in time by May to be able to apply in the next grant cycle for remediation. If there's certain streets that need, you know, new stormwater, that sort of thing. So that's the rationale. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Second item, has to do with, draft restart letter we did on the last meeting, we following the failure to be filed with the restart, businesses in the village. I have redrafted the letter for a meeting and well, I think certainly, but having, and we have a deadline that we're going to send out right away to give people at the end of the month, this month, to respond or trigger respond. I think we've run out of, I don't believe another house form now.
We were lacking the language regarding putting it on the taxes.
And Mike, I spoke to him yesterday, I just left that yesterday, he said he heard that language to get it to you.
I have nothing.
Okay, he
The
said he-
letters are drafted and ready to go. I'm just waiting for them.
Right, so, well, we'll have to circle back with Mark, because he said he had to, when he went out over the weekend. So it needs to be gotten to him, and then we'll probably have to change.
And the exact wording we were looking for from our attorney was what the authorization and not utilizing village law.
No, it was just, there's some boilerplate language we have about making claims and paying. It will be put on the, it will be put again on the taxes. So I just didn't have that language. Go to the time and this stuff, because I didn't have that language in hand and.
Where that authorization comes from.
Yeah, so, but we, I think my revision included reference to our, to establish a problem. It was how it was going to be collected, so the people knew that they just couldn't ignore it, that they were funding it. And Mark was going to have about phraseology.
Well, at this point, I don't think, and I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't realize that that is what the delay was, you know, the mechanism. In our motion, I don't believe we specified that. Here's the issue now, if that letter goes out and says, you know, if you don't let us know by January 15th, and we'll levy it, we could be through a whole nother season. Do we have the authority to put it on the water and sewer, which does get re-levied to the tax? That would be, are you texting Martin?
I think it was- obviously.
Let me just call him.
There were just two things we were bumping into this.
That's right. That's why I'm saying it would be a whole year from now.
So, and if we would put it on the water bill, I don't know. We can't show.
That was the only other thing under water and sewer.
Right, the rest of our some. Something's in the water.
Martin, we obviously let you depart the meeting a little too early. If you have a chance, Paul, this pertains to the grease letter and the mechanism for, that fine. Obviously, we will miss the tax, warrant, which is sent over to the county, November 30th. So we'd love to know if you have another recommendation. Thank you. All right. I can also try with them else, but I don't, you know, that you know, he doesn't answer.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be. Even.
Well, I think what would be important going forward is to know if, it can be put on the water and sewer, just like we are trying to determine, you know, that we do that if someone, for instance, does not repair their lateral and if they're notified in the village because it's badly leaking, when it gets repaired, it goes on their water and sewer. That might be the easiest thing rather than on taxes. It's not the water and sewer bill. So we would just need to ascertain if we have that. Should we, how about if we approve that now? If it is allowed under law, we will apply the fine to your next water and sewer bill.
I would only worry that we will, it's not legal, it doesn't take hold. So I would just say, we will make a motion to apply the fine to water and sewer.
Well, I made the motion and I don't want to be making one that might not be legal, so that's why I was putting that caveat in here. You will second the motion as made. All in favor? Thank you. All right, motion to accept water and sewer board report.
Yeah.
Oh, we did, the report altogether without doing the recent.
Yeah.
Now you missed my vote.
We discussed.
Oh, okay.
So the question is involved.
Oh, okay. Accept the water and sewer board. Watershed supervisory committee minutes are in your packet. I have no idea. I know that they all feel passionate that, needs, every township and village need to support someone who oversees this, because when the 90 plan ultimately gets developed, you know, whose responsibility is it? And that's what they're looking at. That's just down the road.
Should I have a problem?
Well, I think she's from some, is my, it was serious for me.
All right, moving on, new business. Resolution, yes, NICOM asked that, all their municipalities consider this. I will point out that we did receive, in addition to our aid in municipalities, our AIM funding, we received some additional funding this year from the state. And it's not a lot for a small community like us, but it is for others. And so this is just, they're trying to gather, you know, support from all the, NICOM, members to approve this.
We have to sign on to this,
You move,
and move that we sign this.
okay, second by, Audrey, all in favor? Village logo contest, I will say that we had decided that we would go to the Fenimore, to the Hall of Fame, to the Art Association, and library. And one of those just sent their response late Friday. And there seems to be some, you know, couple agreed on one with some modifications. We had said to them that if you like one of these, but you want the designer to tweak or add an element or something, that is all. It's not that close, because a couple said yes to that one and others picked one other as their first choice. So there's a little bit of flow. So where would you like this to go?
So do we have finalists now? I mean, are there things that this body could look at that you would consider finalists based on the recommendation?
You mean like 5 finalists out of the 13 that were submitted?
I was hoping for 3,
But that's what I'm saying, we don't, yeah, we don't quite have that, and I was wondering if we would like, what would we like? Just the ones that were sort of recommended? All right, there were of the like 13 logos that we were given or were submitted. There probably are about 5 or 6 that people liked. So we cut out half, if you want to look at it that way. So I'm just asking, what is the process that this board would like to see moving forward? Because it could be discussion, it could take a while.
I feel like there needs to be a subcommittee, because I don't know that that discussion should happen on a streamed live.
Exactly, so how, I was wondering if it should go to environment and community environment, only because they did weigh in previously in there and just sort of run it by them. Obviously, the board of trustees will have the final say. But if that's everyone agrees with that, that's where we would direct them. No, seems to be.
I would love to see all of them just for fun.
I would too.
Yeah.
But
I like this
not
all.
taking it off the way.
You make somebody like something better than that.
All right, so we will send.
They were sent to everybody when we first did this.
They were sent to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got them in your board packet, if you recall.
I
It was like, you were busy, understandably.
All right, so I come with like a packet, yes, with all of the designs. We'll figure out how to make it.
To do another packet.
If it's in our email, I'll look for it. No, it's in the packet, so we can just wait for the PDF, just so we have it. And that's said to community.
I will make a note of that. John, and that will be your task because we did send all 13 to, we did scan them to
Yes.
the people, so I will just make a note to do that. All right, so coming up, we have breakfast with the board on December 16th. Remember, our board meeting is early in December. And that will be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then our regular December Board of Trustees meeting will be December 16th at 6 o'clock. If there's nothing else to come before the board, I will, I'm sorry. Oh, for December 6th, I know where you're gonna be. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Sorry.
I will entertain a motion to go to executive session to talk about the work history of a particular department. By Joe, second by, Audrey.
Joe's God, he's sleeping.
Moving with alacrity.
I'll make the motion that, we hire Chris DeVille to fill the watershed inspector position along with his CEO responsibilities for a total of $22 an hour.
And do we want to say how many hours a week?
We didn't say that. No one said anything.
I would name it watershed inspector slash CEO position. That means nobody else can say, hey, I can apply for this. If we want it.
As to, I thought we did discuss that it was a full-time position.
But full-time can be 30 hours, Joe. That's what I just said to you, that, the current person in there works 30 hours.
So should we say a minimum of 30 hours a week?
Maybe in that, how's that? For a minimum of 30 hours a week. That's my motion, second by George Owen. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.